Chapter 3578. Breaking the limits of the physical body was an ethereal legend for many people, because it was too difficult. No one had ever done it and succeeded. But at this moment, the two people in front of him actually broke the limits of the physical body. It was hard to imagine how they did it. It was comparable to a heaven-defying artifact. With such a physical body, who could be a match for it? Boom! Qin Feiyang and the Crown Prince of the Dragons collided once again. This was a contest of physical strength. The power of each punch was enough to shatter a mountain and river. Moreover, as the battle continued, their aura and strength became more and more terrifying. Boom! All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang's strength once again rose to a new height. In fact, before this, he did not fully activate the strength of his physical body. At first, it was only at the low-level, heaven-defying level. However, he found that the Crown Prince of the Dragons seemed to be holding back his strength, so he continued to strengthen it. At this moment, his physical body and strength had already reached the high-level, heaven-defying level. But even so, the Crown Prince of the Dragons was completely at ease. In short, Qin Feiyang increased his strength, and so did the Crown Prince of the Dragons. The two were completely evenly matched. Boom! Qin Feiyang's gaze trembled. The power hidden in his body once again erupted. Amazing! In just a few years, not only did you break the limits of your physical body, but you also raised it to the peak heaven-defying level. However, you want to suppress me with this? You're dreaming. The Crown Prince of the Dragons sneered. The strength of his physical body also increased again, and in an instant it rose to the legendary heaven-defying level. Boom! The two's fists collided. Qin Feiyang spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body was immediately sent flying. The onlookers were dumbfounded. Qin Feiyang was actually no match for the Crown Prince of the Dragons. The Crown Prince of the Dragons laughed and said, "You didn't expect that my physical body would be so much stronger than yours." Legendary level, heaven-defying. Qin Feiyang stabilized his body and looked at the dragon race's first prince, whose face was filled with arrogance. This person's strength surprised him time and time again. The legendary level? What do you mean? Some people were bewildered. Once the limits of the physical body are broken, the strength of the physical body can continue to increase. As for the strength of the physical body, it is said that it is divided into several levels, corresponding to the heaven-defying divine artifacts. The strength of the legendary level is comparable to a legendary level divine artifact. Some knowledgeable people began to explain. What? It's comparable to a legendary divine artifact. I haven't even seen a legendary divine artifact in my entire life. Their physical bodies have already reached such a level? Another young man exclaimed. What the hell? You haven't even seen a legendary divine artifact before. Are you from the countryside? The group of people at the side was speechless. Sorry, I'm from the countryside. Didn't I hear that my idol is going to have a duel with someone? That's why I came all the way here to see my idol. The young man smiled embarrassedly. Idol? Some people looked at him puzzledly. My idol is Qin Feiyang. Let me tell you, there are tens of thousands of people in my village. Regardless of gender, old or young, they all regard Qin Feiyang as their idol. The young man smiled proudly. Tens of thousands of people? Everyone looked at the young man speechlessly. What was there to be proud of? A village with tens of thousands of people was very common in the sky cloud realm. However, regarding Qin Feiyang as their idol, this was something that couldn't be refuted, because many people in the sky cloud realm now regarded Qin Feiyang as their idol, especially some children and girls. When they heard the name Qin Feiyang, their eyes lit up. Now they only hoped that the image of this idol wouldn't collapse here. After all, if Qin Feiyang was defeated here today, it would inevitably hurt the hearts of many young fans. Now, can you withstand the power of my punch? The crown prince of the dragons laughed wildly. The heaven-defying strength and physical body of the legendary level made the sea within millions of miles tremble. He then raised his arm and punched at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Wasn't it too early to be proud now? Originally, when he saw this person using him to obtain the supreme inheritance of the Golden Dragon clan, he was a little impressed. He should be a meticulous person who wasn't arrogant or rash. But he didn't expect that he would become arrogant and condescending after just taking a little advantage. It seemed that his playboy character couldn't be changed after all. In just a moment, the crown prince of the dragons rushed in front of Qin Feiyang. A terrifying force rolled out like a torrent. The void around Qin Feiyang collapsed, but he didn't feel any pressure. What a joke! The strength of his physical body had reached the supremacy level. How could a mere legendary level power threaten him? Boom! As the crown prince of the dragons punched, Qin Feiyang suddenly raised his arm and grabbed the fist of the crown prince of the dragons. The aura and strength of his physical body erupted once again. What? The crown prince of the dragons was shocked. This aura, this strength, was actually not the slightest bit weaker than his. How was this possible? It had only been a few years. No matter how heaven-defying his ability was, it was impossible to directly increase the strength of his physical body to the legendary level. But now, the strength he felt from Qin Feiyang's hand had indeed reached this level. How did he do it? Boom! As the two forces collided, the two took a few steps back. As expected of an idol, the strength of his physical body is no weaker than his opponent's. Many young men and women shouted excitedly, "It's indeed powerful." The others also nodded. But thinking about it carefully, it didn't seem to be anything new. Because it was basically like this. Every time Qin Feiyang disappeared for a period of time, his strength would improve greatly. Do you know the difference between you and me? Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the crown prince of the dragons. The crown prince's face was gloomy. I don't care who my opponent is. Even if it's a mortal, I won't underestimate them. But you're different. Just because you have a slight advantage, you start to get carried away and don't put your opponent in your eyes. As the crown prince of the dragons, as the successor of the Golden Dragon clan, as a grand, perfect dominator expert, I'm really surprised that you still have such an attitude. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Preaching to me? What qualifications do you have? The crown prince of the dragons roared. With a monstrous aura, he madly attacked Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's expression was extremely calm. He took a step forward and the two began to fight again. Dragons, Golden Dragon clan, it seems that the other party is really a divine dragon. Truly inconceivable. Our sky cloud realm still has a dragon. Could it be that they are the mysterious force hidden in the Een Demon land? Everyone stared at the crown prince of the dragons. Their eyes filled with awe, not to mention anything else. Just the identity of a divine dragon was enough to make people feel intimidated. Wait, did you guys notice? Every time Qin Feiyang spits out blood, it's actually purple gold. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in surprise. HM? Everyone was slightly stunned and looked at the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth and the clothes on his body. Because Qin Feiyang was wearing white clothes, the purple gold, dragon blood-stained areas were extremely eye-catching. It really was purple gold. What was going on? Why would a human's blood have such a strange color? The battle between Qin Feiyang and the crown prince of the dragons became more and more intense. Both of them had different injuries on their bodies, blood sprinkling down. One of the drops of purple gold dragon blood fell on the face of an old man. The old man was stunned and raised his hand to wipe off the purple gold dragon blood. When he lowered his head and saw the blood on his finger, a trace of shock suddenly crept up on his face. There were also a few people next to the old man who noticed this scene. They looked at the purple gold dragon blood in surprise for a moment and exclaimed, "Am I dreaming?" There's actually dragon aura. What? Dragon aura? His words shocked everyone in all directions. Many people nearby went up to check it out. People in other places also took the initiative to reach out and catch the purple gold dragon blood falling from the sky. There was indeed dragon aura, and this dragon aura was stronger and purer than the dragon aura of an ordinary divine dragon. I thought of a legend suddenly. A hoarse voice sounded. Everyone looked at a white-bearded old man. This white-bearded old man looked at Qin Feiyang in the sky, stroking the beard on his chin, looking unfathomable. Isn't this the old man who told stories in the tea house? Old man, why are you here? The last time you were taken away, I thought you were dead. Don't pretend to be mysterious. Hurry up and tell us, what is the legend? Someone recognized the old man's identity and said with contempt in his eyes. The white-bearded old man glanced at those people who were talking and laughed. I didn't expect you to remember this old man. How can we forget you? I haven't heard you tell stories for a few years. Even drinking tea is boring. Someone said. The white-bearded old man laughed and raised his head to look at Qin Feiyang. He said, Legend has it that many years ago a purple gold divine dragon was born. The moment this purple gold divine dragon appeared, it caused a huge commotion. That's because no purple gold divine dragon has ever appeared in the sky cloud realm. What do you mean? You mean this purple gold dragon is not from our sky cloud realm? Someone was surprised. There are rumors that say so, but rumors are just voice transmissions. Things that are not confirmed can't be believed. The white-bearded old man shook his head. Then why did you say it? Someone was dissatisfied. This old man is a storyteller. What else can I say? Besides, isn't this what you asked me to say? The white-bearded old man was dissatisfied. Okay, go on. Someone waved his hand. Okay, since you want to hear it so much, then this old man will tell you about these rumors. It is said that this purple gold dragon was a woman, and for some reason, she fell in love with a human. You didn't hear it wrong, it was a human. But for many reasons, their union was opposed by many people. As a result, they faced a disaster, and both husband and wife died. But it is said that they seem to have left behind descendants. When the white-bearded old man said this, he looked at Qin Feiyang with a trace of doubt in his eyes. The remaining 2 chapters will be released at 10:30. Chapter 3579. What? The purple gold divine dragon fell in love with a human and left behind a descendant? Everyone looked at each other. Not far away. When Elder Hua and the others heard this, they looked at the white-bearded old man with flickering eyes. This old man seemed to be talking nonsense, but when they thought about it carefully, they felt that he was describing a fact. The Demon Hall Master's eyes flashed. He turned to look at Chu Yun and asked in a low voice, Xiao Yun, when you guys dealt with the first prince of the dragons last time, did this old man act differently? No. You've always looked like a coward. Chu Yun shook her head. Timid. The Demon Hall Master pondered for a while and frowned. But why does he not seem like a timid person? Chu Yun glanced at the white-bearded old man and said indifferently, he's just a storyteller. What's there to pay attention to? The Demon Hall Master and Elder Hua looked at each other and did not say anything else. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, Old man, are you saying that Qin Feiyang is their descendant, and the blood flowing out of him is also the purple, gold dragon blood? I didn't say that Qin Feiyang is their descendant. We can't talk nonsense about things that we can't be sure of. The white-bearded old man quickly waved his hand and said, But what we can be sure of is that the blood flowing out of him is the legendary purple, gold dragon blood. Purple gold dragon blood. Everyone's eyes trembled. If that was the case, wouldn't Qin Feiyang be their descendant? The descendant of a purple gold divine dragon and a human. Why did this sound a little mysterious? High up in the sky, Qin Feiyang and the first prince of the dragons both displayed astonishing battle awareness. They fought back and forth, unable to tolerate each other. Rain poured down from the sky. However, no matter how heavy the rain was, it could not get close to them, because before it could get close, it had already been evaporated by their powerful auras. It seems that the strength of the legendary level is already your limit. The first prince of the dragons smiled coldly. The aura and strength of his physical body surged crazily again. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the supreme level. Boom! Following closely, his eyes were filled with contempt as he punched towards Qin Feiyang's head. This can't be the heaven-defying strength of the supreme stage, right? Obviously it is. Because the crown prince's strength is enough to make me, a perfect sovereign realm expert, feel an intense sense of danger. What kind of monster is this? He actually improved his physical body to such a level. This is an existence that I can only look up to in my entire life. Everyone was extremely shocked. Facing such a powerful crown prince of the dragons, did Qin Feiyang have any chance of winning? But as soon as this thought appeared, another powerful aura erupted. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang again, and they were slightly stunned. His physical body had also reached such a level? Boom! In the sky, Qin Feiyang's gaze was as sharp as a blade as he punched towards the first prince of the dragon's fist. Both of them were emitting dazzling divine light, as if they were in the state of awakening divine weapons. It was extremely terrifying. Accompanied by a loud boom, the two fists collided violently. A shocking power immediately rolled out from the two of them, shattering the void for tens of millions of miles. This is simply a scene of the end of the world. It's too terrifying. Everyone was shocked. The various powerhouses could no longer stand by and watch. For example, the Eastern Continent's Elder Hua and the other two, the Western Continent's Alliance Master and the other two, the Southern Continent's Hizhongtian, the Northern Continent's Sky Hall's powerhouses. They all stood up and protected the surrounding spectators. This was because the battle was very intense. Among these people, many had not reached the perfect sovereign realm, and many were even at the imperishable realm. With their cultivation, they could not withstand the shock waves of the battle between Qin Feiyang and the first prince of the dragons. In the sky, Qin Feiyang and the first prince of the dragons were like two gods of war. Their clothes and long hair fluttered in the wind as two invisible forces collided violently between their fists. However, compared to the calm and composed Qin Feiyang, the first prince of the dragon's expression was a little ferocious. This person's physical body had actually reached the supreme level of heaven-defying strength. Originally, when he saw that Qin Feiyang had maintained the heaven-defying strength of the legendary level, he thought that Qin Feiyang's physical body had only reached this level. In the eyes of others, the heaven-defying strength of the legendary level was a godlike existence. However, in the first prince's eyes, it could not withstand a single blow. He had already planned to use the strength of his physical body to give Qin Feiyang a fatal blow. However, he never expected that Qin Feiyang would be so good at hiding his true strength. "How did you do it?" "I spent hundreds of thousands of years to raise the strength of my physical body to the supreme level of heaven-defying strength. But you, in just a few years, raised the strength of your physical body to this level. I cannot accept this." The first prince of the dragons roared as if he had gone mad. He had already planned that this time, not only would he defeat Qin Feiyang to wash away his shame, but he would also make Qin Feiyang lose all face. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, he would not dare to raise his head in front of others in the future. But who would have thought that Qin Feiyang's physical strength was not inferior to his at all? Who said that I had to spend hundreds of thousands of years like you? If I have to give you a reason, then I can only say that I worked harder than you. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Worked harder than me? Do you know how much effort and sweat I put in to become stronger and inherit the position of the Golden Dragon Clan's patriarch? When the other brothers and sisters were eating, drinking, and playing, I was cultivating. When the other brothers and sisters were acting spoiled in front of their parents, I was also cultivating. All the time, I was thinking about how to become stronger. You still dare to say that you worked harder than me? What a joke! The first prince of the dragons roared as the power in his body surged out like a raging torrent. There's a saying that you don't know. There's always someone better than you. Just when you think that your path will be filled with difficulties in some other places, some other people will have to walk a path that is even more difficult than yours. Qin Feiyang said indifferently as power surged out like a tide. Rumble. When the two forces met, the two immediately retreated. What you said might make sense, but I don't see it. I only see my own hardships. So today you must fall at my feet. The first prince of the dragons roared as a terrifying aura erupted from his body. In the next moment, his cultivation soared to the peak ruler realm. So what if your physical body is strong? In the face of absolute suppression of cultivation, you can only kneel and beg for mercy. At this moment, the first prince of the dragons was like a mad bull. His fists were like meteors as they flew toward Qin Feiyang. It can't be. He's hiding his cultivation. Peak ruler realm. He's one level higher than Qin Feiyang. Isn't this a one-sided situation? Seeing Qin Feiyang being beaten back by the first prince of the dragons, many people couldn't help but worry for Qin Feiyang. Sister, this person's strength isn't all that great. Pyrotechnic Glow pursed his lips. Not all that great? You were slapped into the sea by him? Princess Huifeng rolled her eyes at him. That's because his physical body is very strong. Putting aside his physical body, he's just average. Pyrotechnic Glow smiled disdainfully. Idiot. Princess Huifeng couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with this idiot. Why are you cursing? Pyrotechnic Glow was dissatisfied. Daifuku chuckled. Your Highness isn't wrong. Daifuku, what do you mean? Pyrotechnic Glow frowned. Daifuku said, Your Highness, think about it. If it's really as you say, Qin Feiyang is just an ordinary human, then can he break the limits of his physical body? This Pyrotechnic Glow was speechless for a moment. He pursed his lips and said, He's just lucky. Lucky. Daifuku didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Breaking the limits of the physical body just because he was lucky? This statement was too naive. Princess Huifeng said indifferently, Daifuku, don't talk nonsense with this idiot, lest you lower your own intelligence. Sister, you're attacking me personally. If we weren't born of the same parents, I would have fallen out with you. When Pyrotechnic Glow heard this, a trace of anger appeared on his face. I'm also puzzled. Why is the difference so big even though we're both born of the same parents? Princess Huifeng shook her head and sighed. Pyrotechnic Glow was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Daifuku, Xiaofu, and the two women couldn't help but laugh. These two siblings were really enemies, fighting each other whenever they didn't agree. On the other side, the white-haired old woman, the white-haired old man, and the middle-aged man had been watching the battlefield. Seeing Qin Feiyang getting more and more embarrassed by the dragon's crown prince, they felt quite comfortable. Suddenly, a murmur sounded. The three of them immediately looked at Bing Runing, who was floating next to them. They saw Bing Runing's eyelids move and slowly open her eyes. What's going on? My head hurts. It seems like I was hit by someone. Bing Runing got up, rubbed the back of her head, and frowned. It was me, the white-haired old man said. You? Bing Runing was stunned. She looked at the white-haired old man and said angrily, Why? Your Highness, you really need to calm down. The white-haired old man sighed. The white-haired old woman and the middle-aged man also nodded. Humph! Bing Runing glanced at the three of them and snorted. She looked up at the battlefield in the sky and was stunned. The dragon's crown prince is actually a perfected dominator. Moreover, both of them have broken the limits of their physical bodies. However, judging from the current situation, Qin Feiyang is definitely going to die. The white-haired old woman laughed sinisterly. A perfected dominator? Bing Rinning looked at the dragon race's gambling prince in astonishment. She then looked at Qin Feiyang, who was in a sorry state, and sneered, "It's best if you cut him into 1,000 pieces and grind his bones to dust." However, I haven't seen them activate their profound laws or sovereign divine weapons. They probably still have some tricks up their sleeves. The white-haired old man was relatively rational. Qin Feiyang dared to fight the dragon's crown prince, so he must have made sufficient preparations. In his opinion, the outcome of this battle was still hard to predict. However, he didn't say it out loud, fearing that Bing Rinning would be dissatisfied. Chapter 3580. High up in the sky, Qin Feiyang was covered in blood and wounds. The crown prince of the dragons was the complete opposite. His momentum was unstoppable. I swore in my heart more than once that in this battle I will let you have a taste of being trampled on. Now it's time for you to have a taste. Accompanied by a loud laugh, the crown prince of the dragons waved his hand, and a thunderous force surged out from his palm. The law of thunder. He had finally activated the law of thunder. Boom! The crown prince of the dragons slammed his palm on Qin Feiyang's chest. The thunderous force contained an unstoppable force and instantly pierced through Qin Feiyang's chest, leaving a fist-sized bloody hole. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and was sent flying. What's going on? Why isn't Qin Feiyang activating the law of thunder? Is he just waiting to be beaten up? What do you know? Facing the difference in cultivation, even if he activates the law of thunder, it won't help. I know that even the law of thunder cannot make up for the difference in cultivation, but rumor has it that Qin Feiyang has mastered the karma law of thunder's ultimate mystery. The ultimate mystery. Even if there is a difference of a small realm, it can still easily crush him. Seeing this scene, some people in the crowd began to argue. What? Why aren't you activating your ultimate mystery? Who are you looking down on? The crown prince of the dragons roared. The law of thunder turned into a terrifying thunderous force, covering the sky as it crazily charged at Qin Feiyang. Boom! Right at this moment, Qin Feiyang waved his big hand, and 10 golden lotuses appeared in the sky. Then they crushed the power of the thunderbolts in the void and shattered them. Following closely, the 10 golden lotuses charged at the crown prince of the dragons. Did you see that? This is the karma law of thunder's ultimate mystery. It is indeed an invincible existence. Everyone was excited. So what if the crown prince of the dragons is strong? Everyone knew that cultivation was indeed an inseparable part of the sovereign realm. But the most important part was still the comprehension of the laws. Take the karma laws, for example. Unless one possessed a karma law of the same level, who would be able to compete with it? That's how it should be. If it's too easy to defeat you, then it won't be interesting. When the crown prince of the dragons saw the 10 golden lotuses, he was not nervous. Instead, he was excited. Rumble, woo-woo, accompanied by gusts of wind. An eye of lightning formed above the head of the first dragons. Thunder roared all around, like the eye of the heavens, exuding an aura of destruction. This is the supreme profundity of the laws of lightning. Everyone was stunned. The first prince of the dragon clan swept his gaze over the crowd below. He looked at Qin Feiyang with an aggressive gaze and sneered. There are many people here who regard you as their idol. Today, I will break your idol's image in front of them and make you beg for mercy on the ground like a dog. As soon as he finished speaking, streaks of destructive lightning appeared and blasted toward the 10 golden lotuses. Rumble! A series of deafening noises immediately resounded in this world. The ultimate mystery of the ultimate mystery was indeed not something that ordinary laws could compare to. The destructive lightning continued to shatter. That's it. I thought it would be strong, but it turns out that it's just this. How dare you speak so arrogantly and make Qin Feiyang beg for mercy with just this little trick? You're overestimating yourself. Everyone immediately mocked. The crown prince of the dragons smirked and scanned the countless spectators. He said with disdain, "My tricks are not something that ants like you can imagine." Boom! Before he finished speaking, a terrifying aura accompanied by a destructive force rushed out of the crown prince of the dragon's body and rushed in all directions. The law of destruction? Everyone was surprised. Ultimate mystery, god of destruction. The crown prince of the dragons roared, and a huge statue appeared above his head. The destructive aura instantly shrouded everyone present. Everyone was dumbfounded. This person not only mastered the ultimate mystery of the laws of lightning, but also the ultimate mystery of the laws of destruction. In this case, wouldn't Qin Feiyang be in danger? The law of destruction was also an ultimate mystery and was on par with the law of cause and effect. Coupled with the difference in cultivation, wouldn't Qin Feiyang lose without a doubt? Then they looked at Qin Feiyang opposite them, looking at the god of destruction above the crown prince of the dragons. Their eyes flickered. Could this be the ultimate inheritance that the crown prince of the dragons had obtained? Although he had yet to reveal his true strength, the methods that the crown prince of the dragons had displayed were already qualified to show disdain for others. A supreme-level physical body, the law of lightning, the law of destruction, two ultimate mysteries with such methods. Even people of the older generation, like Elder Hu, were no match for the crown prince of the dragons. Simply put, not counting the 4 forbidden areas, the crown prince of the dragons' current strength was enough to suppress an entire continent. Destroy! The crown prince of the dragons waved his hand, and the god of destruction raised his arm. A huge palm that could cover the sky came crashing down toward the 10 golden lotuses. With a loud cracking sound, the 10 golden lotuses shattered on the spot. Pooh! Qin Feiyang spat out a mouthful of blood and kept retreating. The shattering of a supreme profound intent brought about severe injuries. His complexion paled. Don't you have 3,000 incarnations? Don't you have the 6-word divine art? Bring them all out. Watch how I crush them one by one. The crown prince of the dragons became even more arrogant. With the ultimate mysteries of the law of destruction and the law of lightning, in addition to his advantage in cultivation, he was no longer afraid of Qin Feiyang's methods. Of course, the slaughter zone was an exception. However, the slaughter zone and the sovereign divine weapon were pre-agreed upon and could not be activated. Therefore, he was fearless now. The goddess of victory was standing behind him. Qin Feiyang remained silent. Boom! The ultimate mysteries of the law of destruction and the law of karma roared out at the same time. What? How did he master the ultimate mysteries of the law of destruction? When did this happen? Why have I never heard of it? Those who didn't know what was going on were all shocked. 2 ultimate mysteries of the ultimate mysteries. How shocking was that? Until now, they had never seen such an existence. Even people like Elder Hua had only mastered one ultimate mystery of the ultimate mysteries of the ultimate mysteries. In terms of comprehension, Qin Feiyang was far superior to the first prince of the dragons. In fact, he had surpassed all living beings on the various continents. Princess Huofeng said indifferently, "Brother, now you see it? Do you still think he's ordinary?" Pyrotechnic Glow's mouth was so dry that he couldn't say anything. The paramount profound meanings of 2 supreme laws, even in Feng people. No one had ever seen such a monster. One of the women shook her head and said, "Although he possesses 2 supreme profundities of supreme laws, the difference in cultivation is still unbridgeable." Yeah, just one more step and he'll be able to fully mature. As long as he's given some more time to break through to the perfection sovereign realm, with his means, let alone the 4 great continents, Even our 4 great forbidden zones wouldn't dare to underestimate him. The other woman nodded in agreement. It was true that he was a monster, but he was still a monster that had yet to mature. Right. Pyrotechnic Glow heard their words and nodded repeatedly. So what if he has comprehended more supreme profundities? He still can't turn the tables and turn defeat into victory. In fact, in his heart, he already felt a sense of fear toward Qin Feiyang. At such a young age, he had already grasped 2 supreme profundities of supreme laws. If he continued to grow, how powerful would he be? However, the first prince of the dragons wasn't surprised that Qin Feiyang had grasped 2 supreme profundities. The corners of his mouth were also full of disdain. The destruction god's giant hand carried an apocalyptic aura as it slammed toward the 2 supreme profundities. With a loud boom, Qin Feiyang's 2 supreme profundities were shattered on the spot. The next moment, the destruction god's giant hand slammed toward Qin Feiyang. Boom! In the nick of time, Qin Feiyang activated the battle formula and the law of war. However, in the face of the destruction god's giant hand, the armor formed by the battle formula shattered instantly with a crack. Dong! Following closely, Qin Feiyang was like a blood-stained meteorite as he crashed into the sea below, causing huge waves to surge. Long Qin took a sip of tea and looked at the white-eyed wolf with a smile. I told you that Brother Qin would be in for a tough battle. The white-eyed wolf was stunned and looked at Long Qin strangely. What? Is there a problem with what I said? Long Qin was suspicious. No problem. The white-eyed wolf shook his paws and sighed. I already told little Qinzi not to fight with that bullshit first prince before he breaks through to sovereign perfection, but he just won't listen. Long Qin smiled. Brother Qin is indeed a little careless regarding this matter. Isn't that so? But there's no other way. They've already started fighting. Now we can only pray to the heavens and hope for a miracle. The white-eyed wolf shook his head, but his eyes were full of smiles. Did he really think that little Qinzi would lose? Just wait, the best part was yet to come. Splash! Waves surged in the sea below. Qin Feiyang rushed out of a wave, his body dripping with blood. His face was pale and his aura was very weak. If not for the dual protection of the battle character art and the law of war, he would have been doomed. However, it didn't matter, because everything was under control. Why didn't you activate your 3,000 clones? I heard that that's your true trump card. The first prince of the dragon clan looked down at Qin Feiyang, who was standing on the surface of the sea, and laughed loudly. Qin Feiyang, you have to do your best. We all have high hopes for you. Yes. Quickly beat him up and shut him up. It's so annoying to listen to his chatter. The surrounding crowd roared. It's useless. No matter how strong he is, he won't be able to defeat the first prince of the dragons. Unless he can break through to the peak ruler realm now. If he really breaks through to the peak ruler realm, he'll be able to turn the situation around in an instant. But breaking through to the peak ruler realm isn't something that can be done so easily. Someone sighed. At least there are a few sensible people. The dragon race's crown prince raised his head and laughed heartily. Suddenly, he lowered his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. Killing intent burst out from his eyes as he said sinisterly, "Your biggest mistake is coming to fight me before you even stepped into the great perfection, sovereign realm." The destruction god standing in the sky exuded a ferocious aura that intimidated everyone. Chapter 3581. Isn't this what you want? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The first prince of the dragons was slightly taken aback. How could he still be so calm? This face of his was really detestable. Boom! The destruction god took a step forward like a god descending to the world. His divine might was unfathomable. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly. He glanced at Long Chin, then looked at the first prince of the dragons and said, "If I'm not wrong, you should have heard from Long Chin that my cultivation is only at the perfected sovereign realm. That's why you challenged me." The white-eyed wolf heard this and turned to look at Long Chin. Long Chin smiled faintly and said, "I just said it casually." It was Long Chin who had brought them out of the heavy region, so Long Chin knew about Qin Feiyang's cultivation. "I just said it casually, but I think your motives are not pure." The white-eyed wolf sneered. The fire dragon sneered and said, "If the god's son's motives were not pure, he wouldn't have saved you in the heavy region." The white-eyed wolf couldn't help but frown. This did make sense. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. The first prince of the dragons seized the opportunity to challenge Qin Feiyang directly when Long Chin said it casually. This was because before Qin Feiyang stepped into the perfected sovereign realm, the first prince of the dragons had the ability to crush him with the supreme profundity of the law of destruction. Even if Qin Feiyang activated his 3,000 clones, he still wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. The first prince of the dragons nodded and said, "That's right. I heard from the god's son that you're only at the perfected sovereign realm, so I immediately challenged you. Actually, you could have rejected it, but you also expected that I wouldn't reject it." Qin Feiyang said faintly, "Yes, your pride won't allow you to reject someone's challenge. But sometimes pride can kill people." The first prince of the dragons sneered. "Wrong." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Wrong?" The first prince of the dragons was stunned and asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" "You made a total of 4 mistakes. First, you overestimate me. Self-esteem and pride are nothing in my eyes. I know I'm not your match. So why would I accept your challenge? Isn't it good to live? Besides, when we made the agreement back then, we didn't say that the time of the challenge would be decided by you. So, as you said before, I can completely refuse. Secondly, when you challenged me, you shouldn't have chosen 10 days later. Because to me, a lot of things can happen in 10 days. But I can also think of the reason why you chose 10 days later. Because 10 days ago, when you challenged me, you weren't fully prepared. Thirdly, you shouldn't be confused by appearances, and you shouldn't let your pride get to your head. You can hide your cultivation and strength, so why can't I do the same? Fourthly, you shouldn't be so confident and reveal your true strength so early. I'm sure you've heard of the saying, "Know thyself and know thy enemy, and thou shalt be victorious in every battle." Throughout the entire process, Qin Feiyang's tone was extremely flat, as if he was narrating an unimportant matter. But when the first prince of the dragons heard these words, he immediately felt a sense of unease. This was because Qin Feiyang was far too calm at this moment. He could even sense a hint of mockery in his words. But the most terrifying part was the third part. You can hide your cultivation and strength. So why can't I? Could it be boom? Before the first prince of the dragon race could think of such a thing, a terrifying aura erupted like a volcano. This, the first prince of the dragons, was stunned. As he had expected, this person was also hiding his cultivation. This is the aura of a great perfection dominator. I didn't expect Qin Feiyang to be a great perfection dominator. No wonder he didn't panic at all. The surrounding onlookers were also enlightened at this moment. So fast! He Zhongtian, who was standing beside the second princess of the dragons, muttered. The last time he came to 7-Star City, Qin Feiyang was only a great perfection dominator, but in just 10 days he had broken through to great perfection dominator without anyone noticing. It could be said that the exposure of Qin Feiyang's cultivation caused everyone present to feel extreme shock. Even Elder Hua and the other 2 were shocked. Although Elder Hua had sent a message to Qin Feiyang in the morning, he didn't pay attention to Qin Feiyang's cultivation. Even he thought that Qin Feiyang's cultivation was still at great perfection dominator. Of course, the ones who were the most shocked were Bing Running and the second princess of the dragons. although there was only one step between Great Perfection Dominator and Great Perfection Dominator. The difference was like heaven and earth. No matter how strong a Great Perfection Dominator was, he would be suppressed by a Great Perfection Dominator. However, once a Great Perfection Dominator stepped into this realm, it was equivalent to stepping onto the top of the pyramid of the Sky Cloud realm. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that this step was like a carp leaping over the Dragon Gate, especially for someone like Qin Feiyang, who had grasped two supreme laws. Once he stepped into the Great Perfection Dominator realm, he would be an invincible existence. Whether it was his status or identity, it would instantly soar by a large margin. It could be said that if it wasn't based on seniority and strength, even Elder Hua and the other big shots would have to respectfully address Qin Feiyang as senior. After stepping into the Great Perfection Dominator realm, Qin Feiyang already had the ability to suppress all the super forces. Qin Feiyang stepped into the sky step by step and looked at the first prince of the dragons with a faint smile. I thought that victory was in my hands and I could trample on you as I wished, but I suddenly realized that everything was just my wishful thinking. I think it's hard for you to accept this fact now, right? The first prince of the dragons clenched his fists. Yes, he knew that Qin Feiyang's cultivation was still at the Great Perfection Dominator realm, which was why he challenged him at this time. However, he never expected that Qin Feiyang had already broken through to the Great Perfection Dominator realm. Moreover, Qin Feiyang had been holding back until now before revealing his true strength, which ruthlessly destroyed his confidence and arrogance. So now you should know why I haven't activated my 3,000 incarnations. It's because you don't have the qualifications to make me activate my 3,000 incarnations. His words were still very calm, but everyone present couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. How much courage did one need to say such arrogant words to the first prince of the dragons? However, they had to admit that Qin Feiyang did indeed have the qualifications to say such words. As his voice fell, the supreme profundities of the laws of karma and the laws of destruction instantly appeared. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions like a tide. The heavens collapsed, the void was annihilated, and massive waves rose up in the sea. It was like the scene of the end of the world. Two supreme laws of supreme laws. Even we can only submit to them. Elder Hua smiled bitterly. However, he felt more gratified in his heart, because he didn't misjudge. How long had it been since Qin Feiyang entered the Sky Cloud realm? Now he had grown into a giant. Now, if the experts of the 4 Forbidden Lands didn't appear, who could compete with this kid? Yes, for our Demon Hall, this is also a qualitative leap. The Demon Hall's Hall Master nodded. The Demon Hall's stance these years was a huge gamble, because whether it was facing the dragons or the foam people, they chose to stand with Qin Feiyang. Especially when facing the dragons, Qin Feiyang hadn't grown yet. At that time, choosing to stand with Qin Feiyang was completely gambling with their lives. Fortunately, Qin Feiyang didn't disappoint them. Now, in the 4 continents, Qin Feiyang already had the absolute right to speak. His position was unshakable. I don't even have the qualifications to make him activate his 3,000 incarnations. The first prince of the dragons muttered to himself. In his heart, a monstrous anger erupted. What are you being arrogant for? Boom! The supreme profound of the destruction law and the thunder law roared out at the same time, carrying the power to destroy the world, crazily attacking Qin Feiyang. When Qin Feiyang revealed his true cultivation, he already knew that this battle could be declared over. However, he couldn't accept it. As the first prince of the dragons, as the successor of the Golden Dragon clan, he couldn't lose here, because he had already obtained the supreme profound and had promised his clan that he would definitely defeat Qin Feiyang. If he lost here today, not only would he suffer a fatal psychological trauma, but even the Golden Dragon clan wouldn't let him off easily. At that time, He, the high and mighty first prince, would definitely fall from the altar and become a street rat that everyone wanted to beat up. He couldn't help but collapse just thinking about such a miserable situation. Boom! In an instant, the four supreme profound collided with a loud explosion that shook the heavens and earth. The supreme profound of the thunder law was simply like a withered tree in the face of the supreme profound of the supreme profound. It collapsed instantly. Then the two supreme profound blasted toward the god of destruction. The result was the same. In the face of the two supreme profound of the supreme profound, the first prince of the dragon's destruction law was extremely weak and shattered in the void. Puff! He coughed out a mouthful of blood as he retreated. His face was deathly pale. I'm not being arrogant. It's just that you've been traumatized and think that I'm being arrogant. Although compared to the other princes and princesses, you're indeed more outstanding. In the end, you're still a good-for-nothing with a weak heart. Qin Feiyang shook his head. A terrifying aura shook the world. The two supreme profound blasted the sky like lightning and blasted toward the first prince of the dragons. Just as the first prince of the dragons was about to die under the supreme profound, a dazzling golden light suddenly erupted from his body. In the next instant, a golden barrier appeared about 100 feet wide. The first prince of the dragons stood in the middle of the barrier and looked at the two supreme profound with a sinister smile. Boom! The two supreme profound blasted toward the golden barrier, but it only trembled a few times before returning to normal. What's that? Looking at this scene, the spectators were dumbfounded. This was too unbelievable. One had to know those weren't ordinary laws, nor were they ordinary supreme profound. They were the karma law and the destruction law. How could he block them? He must be dreaming. Chapter 3582. Long Chin shook his head and said, "White-eyed wolf, you're not being honest." "What do you mean?" The white-eyed wolf looked at Long Chin suspiciously. "Brother Qin broke through to the sovereign realm and kept it from me. When I said that Brother Qin would be in a tough battle, you must have mocked me in your heart." Long Chen was helpless. "Ha!" the white-eyed wolf laughed. Long Chen rolled his eyes and looked at the golden barrier. He smiled and said, "However, with this golden dragon domain, even if Brother Qin breaks through to the sovereign realm, he'll still be in a tough battle. Golden dragon domain, fire dragon domain, these things seem to be forbidden techniques. It's supported by vitality. It's fine if you use it to escape, but if you use it to fight, you'll just be digging your own grave." The white-eyed wolf smiled disdainfully. Long Chen was slightly stunned and looked at the white-eyed wolf in surprise. The white-eyed wolf said indifferently, "Don't look at me like that. It's not like I haven't fought with dragons before." Long Chen laughed involuntarily. He then looked at the Dragon Crown Prince in the Golden Dragon Domain and muttered, "How are you going to break out of this deadlock?" It was just as the white-eyed wolf said. The Golden Dragon's domain and the Fire Dragon's domain might be useful for escaping, but using them in a battle was simply courting death. This was because you had to use vitality as the price to maintain the Golden Dragon domain. You didn't have the qualifications to continue fighting. For example, now, although Qin Feiyang couldn't break out of the Golden Dragon domain, as long as he delayed the Dragon Crown Prince, he would be the final victor. This was because he only needed to delay. Once the first prince of the Dragon Clan ran out of life force, the Golden Dragon domain would disappear. Therefore, he didn't need to forcefully break out of the Golden Dragon domain. Do you think I'll escape? Let me tell you, I won't. The first prince of the dragons roared, and the power of various laws surged out. The law of destruction, the law of lightning, and the law of death. Among the remaining 4 laws, there was actually one of the strongest laws. Obviously, the law of death was something the crown prince of the dragons had truly comprehended on his own. As for the law of destruction, It was the supreme inheritance of the Golden Dragon clan, apart from the law of destruction and the law of thunder. The rest of the 6 laws had already reached the 5th profundity. Boom! As the first prince of the dragons waved his hand, the various profound abilities turned into a torrent that surged toward Qin Feiyang. But for this, Qin Feiyang just smiled faintly. There were no fancy tricks. Just the supreme profundities of the laws of destruction and the laws of karma were enough to crush them. As time passed, the dragon race's first prince's appearance started to age. His heart was filled with despair. Although the Golden Dragon domain had a very strong defensive power, it didn't have much destructive power. It wasn't a problem to keep his life, but he had to escape from this desperate situation as soon as possible. Otherwise, when his vitality was exhausted, he would directly fall without the need for the other party to make a move. Unexpected, the little princess of the dragons murmured. In fact, she didn't think highly of Qin Feiyang at first. The reason why she still cooperated with Qin Feiyang was because she wanted to give it a try. Secondly, she wanted to let Qin Feiyang and the first prince of the dragons fight each other. When there was an opportunity, she would stand out and reap the benefits. But right now, the strength that Qin Feiyang displayed was a completely one-sided situation. It was obviously impossible to reap the benefits of the fisherman. Now, she didn't want to think about other things for the time being. She only hoped that Qin Feiyang could successfully kill the first prince of the dragons. This could also be considered as fulfilling a wish in her heart. The first prince of the dragons was still struggling. Although he also had the Eye of Heaven, the situation was the same as Qin Feiyang's Eye of Heaven. Right now, it was of little use and had no use. At this moment, his hair had already become dry and snow-white. His face was also full of wrinkles. His entire person was like an old man in his 70s or 80s. Has it really come to an end? I can't accept this. I am the first prince of the dragons, the future successor of the Golden Dragon clan. How can I be defeated in the hands of a human? He roared in his heart, but the despair in his heart surged out uncontrollably, constantly destroying his fighting spirit. About 10 breaths later, his originally strong body was now like dry wood. His breath was dying, and his vitality had reached the end. With a crack, the Golden Dragon domain disintegrated on its own. You've won this battle. The first prince of the dragons looked at Qin Feiyang with a miserable expression and slowly collapsed. Qin Feiyang silently looked at the first prince of the dragons. Although they were old enemies, the first prince of the dragon's final performance made him look at him in a new light. Because he did not escape and had been fighting until now, he did not activate the sovereign divine weapon, nor did he ask the second princess of the dragons and the others to help. This meant that this person had indeed relied on his own ability to defeat him. In short, at the last moment, the first prince of the dragon's actions could be considered a real man. You didn't lose to me. You lost to your own conceit. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, Yes. At this moment, I understand why I lost to you, but a loss is a loss. I have nothing to say. Cherish the Eye of Heaven. Don't let down its power, the first prince of the dragons said weakly. As his voice fell, a purple gold eye swept out from between his eyebrows. It was the Eye of Heaven. Treat it well, cherish it. Looking at the Eye of Heaven, the first prince of the dragons murmured. In the end, he fell to the sea below. The moment the Eye of Heaven appeared, the fighting soul in Qin Feiyang's body started to stir. He could clearly feel a desire from it. Boom! In the next moment, the purple gold dragon soul appeared on its own. The Eye of Heaven between his eyebrows opened on its own. Rays of divine light surged out and enveloped the first prince of the dragon's Eye of Heaven. But at this moment, the fire dragon, who was lying on Long Chen's shoulder, suddenly jumped out and swept toward the Eye of Heaven. You're courting death. The white-eyed wolf suddenly stood up and activated instant time, instantly blocking in front of the fire dragon. This was because it had expected that the fire dragon would definitely interfere. After all, once the Eye of Heaven merged, Qin Feiyang would become a truly invincible existence. Therefore, it had been paying attention to the fire dragon. "You're the one courting death." The fire dragon sneered, and the supreme intent of the law of destruction roared out. Boom! At the same time, the white-eyed wolf's body fought. The supreme intents of the law of karma, the law of death, the law of space-time, and the law of destruction were all activated in an instant. What? It actually has so many supreme intents. And they're all supreme intents. The surrounding crowd was instantly shocked. The instant time, the law of space-time, and the other supreme intents. These were the supreme intents of the 5 supreme intents. Terrifying, truly terrifying. However, the fire dragon had a look of disdain. So what if it had more supreme intents? The difference in cultivation could never be made up for. The law of destruction charged forward. Rumble. Boom. Boom. The white-eyed wolf's supreme intents of the 4 supreme intents shattered on the spot. If it were any other supreme intents, even if the white-eyed wolf was only a perfected dominator, it would still be invincible. However, the fire dragon also had a supreme intent of the supreme intents of the supreme intents of the supreme intents. This was the factor that made it unbeatable. Immediately after, the law of destruction blasted toward the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf let out a miserable groan and was sent flying, blood gushing out of its body. If it hadn't broken the limits of its physical body, the fire dragon's attack would have been enough to kill it. At this moment, because of the white-eyed wolf's obstruction, Qin Feiyang's Eye of Heaven emitted a purple-gold beam of light that connected the dragon's Eye of Heaven to the first prince's Eye of Heaven like a divine chain. The moment the two were connected, a majestic aura surged out in all directions with the two as the center. At the same time, the dragon race's crown prince's Eye of Heaven also slowly flew towards Qin Feiyang's Eye of Heaven. Don't even think about successfully merging. The fire dragon's murderous, intense sword as the law of destruction madly charged toward Qin Feiyang. Bastard! The white-eyed wolf roared as it activated all its supreme intents and once again charged in front of the fire dragon. You want to die that much? Okay, this emperor will fulfill your wish. The fire dragon raised his eyebrows as his murderous intent surged. The law of destruction's supreme intents were like a terrifying god as it shattered the white-eyed wolf's supreme intents and then slapped at the white-eyed wolf. Roar! With a howl, the white-eyed wolf's physical body cracked open, and blood dyed the sky red as it smashed into the sea below. After the white-eyed wolf's delay, the dragon's Eye of Heaven was about to reach Qin Feiyang. The fire dragon panicked. If Qin Feiyang really managed to merge with the Eye of Heaven, then he would be able to replicate both the law of destruction and the heaven-defying divine art. Qin Feiyang's strength was already frightening enough. If the Eye of Heaven successfully evolved, then he would be able to kill any god or demon that stood in his way. With Big Bro here, don't even think about stopping little Qin Z. With a roar, the white-eyed wolf charged out once more, exuding an unparalleled aura with all its supreme intents. An unkillable cockroach? The fire dragon raised his eyebrows and looked at the second princess and the others. He shouted, "Hurry up and stop Qin Feiyang. Otherwise, you will all become his stepping stones in the future." The second princess and the others shuddered as they looked at Qin Feiyang with murderous intent in their eyes. In the next moment, with a loud bang, sovereign divine weapons appeared one after another. The white dragon sword, the blood dragon blade, the black dragon mirror. There were a total of 8 sovereign divine weapons. Retreat! Elder Hua shouted at the crowd when he saw the situation. He had never thought that this battle would turn into a battle between the sovereign divine weapons. Hearing Elder Hua's roar, the crowd immediately turned around and fled for their lives. They knew that once the sovereign divine weapons started fighting, only death would await them if they stayed. The only ones who didn't move were the young man and Long Chen. Long Chen's eyes flickered, but he didn't stop the fire dragon. No one knew what he was thinking. As for the young man, he still looked sleepy. Hurry up and kill him! As the Dragon Clan's princes and princesses shouted, the White Dragon Sword and the other sovereign divine weapons immediately charged towards Qin Feiyang. Faced with such a situation, there was no doubt that he would die. However, Qin Feiyang didn't despair because of this. With a clang, the ancient castle appeared, and its divine aura shook the surroundings. Clang! The Grim Reaper's sword and the horsetail whisk also appeared. Even if you have 3 sovereign divine weapons, can you stop 8 of our sovereign divine weapons? The second princess sneered. Chapter 3583. You're underestimating me, Qin Feiyang. Since I dared to come to White Crane Island to accept the challenge, I'm already prepared to deal with you. Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade. Qin Feiyang roared. With a loud clang, the 2 sovereign divine weapons flew out of Princess Huifeng's body. They streaked across the sky like lightning and arrived in front of Qin Feiyang. What? The second princess of the dragons, as well as Bing Running's group, all looked at this scene in shock. The 2 sovereign divine weapons were actually helping Qin Feiyang? Sister, what's going on? Pyrotechnic Glow and the 2 women also looked at Princess Huifeng in surprise. This is the agreement between him and father. The 2 sovereign divine weapons will now listen to Qin Feiyang's orders. Princess Huifeng transmitted her voice. They will listen to Qin Feiyang's orders. Pyrotechnic Glow and the other 2 looked at each other. With the appearance of the Fire Phoenix Sword and Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, the ancient castle, the horsetail whisk, and the Grim Reaper's sword, Qin Feiyang now had 5 sovereign divine weapons. Although it wasn't enough to deal with the dragon's 8 sovereign divine weapons, it was enough to delay them for a while. On the other side, the white-eyed wolf was once again sent flying by the fire dragon, and his body was torn apart. I'll send you to hell right now. The fire dragon roared and charged toward the white-eyed wolf. Who are you sending to hell? Did you ask for my permission? However, at this moment, a black-clothed young man descended from the sky and slapped at the fire dragon. Boom! A wave of death energy rolled out from the black-clothed young man's palm. Caught off guard, the fire dragon was sent flying. Madman! The white-eyed wolf floated in the void and looked at the black-clothed young man in front of him in surprise. That's right. This person was the lunatic who had been separated from him for a long time. Madman's appearance not only surprised Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, but also surprised the second princess of the dragons. Hey! The madman looked at the white-eyed wolf and bared his teeth. I didn't expect you to be in such a sorry state. You're really embarrassing me. Scram! White-eyed wolf's face darkened. Tell me, and you're still unhappy. Madman pouted and looked at the fire dragon. You dare to bully my brother? You really don't know your place. Boom! As his voice fell, a terrifying aura erupted. He had reached the peak sovereign realm. Following closely, the Edict of Death and Edict of Destruction surged out. A dark, red, waning moon and a giant statue appeared above the madman's head. Damn you! The white-eyed wolf roared. Not only had he raised his cultivation to the sovereign realm, but he had also comprehended the supreme profundities of the laws of death and the laws of destruction. Just how had the madman been cultivating on Skycloud Island all these years? Haha, did you see that? This is my disciple. At the same time, the Hall of Famers was also secretly laughing, looking at the Alliance Master and Vice Alliance Master, as well as the Divine Python couple. His expression was full of pride. The Alliance Master and the others rolled their eyes at him. We know your disciple is outstanding, but there's no need to deliberately show off. However, This little madman was indeed powerful. After not seeing him for a while, he had comprehended two supreme profundities of the laws of death. This strength was not inferior to Qin Feiyang at all. Boom! With a wave of the madman's hand, the two supreme profundities immediately charged toward the fire dragon. The fire dragon's pupils suddenly shrank. The supreme profundities of the law of destruction surged as he frantically attacked. But there was no suspense. The madman's two supreme profundities completely crushed him. Then the two supreme profundities blasted onto the fire dragon's body, and a terrifying fluctuation instantly drowned the fire dragon. Hurry up! Seeing how powerful the madman was, the second princess's eyes trembled. She looked at the dragon mirror and the other sovereign divine weapons and shouted, "Hurry up!" The 8 sovereign divine weapons crazily attacked. The 5 sovereign divine weapons, including the ancient castle, desperately protected Qin Feiyang. For a moment, although the ancient castle and the other sovereign divine weapons were in a passive situation, they were still barely able to resist. Ice Phoenix Sword, Black Ice Divine Hammer, Black Ice Divine Bow, go help! Seeing this, Bing Running shouted. The 3 sovereign divine weapons immediately rushed out and went straight to the battlefield. Bing Running, what are you doing? Princess Woofing shouted. Bing Running sneered. I should be the one asking you this. Why are you helping Qin Feiyang? Princess Woofing's face was as dark as water. Sister, do you need my help? Pyrotechnic Glow said in a deep voice. Princess Woofing said, Nonsense, we have to protect Qin Feiyang. Pyrotechnic Glow's eyes turned cold when he heard this. Fire Phoenix Blade, Divine Phoenix Spear, protect Qin Feiyang. Following 2 loud clangs, a long saber made of scarlet flames and a long spear made of fire flew out of Hua Zihue's body. They tore through the sky like lightning and attacked the 3 sovereign divine weapons. In fact, Qin Feiyang's side was still at a disadvantage. If this continued, Qin Feiyang's side would definitely lose. After all, the difference in the number of sovereign divine weapons was too great. But fortunately, the ancient castle's sovereign divine weapons weren't fighting with their lives on the line. They just needed to block the Ice Phoenix Sword and the other sovereign divine weapons. So many sovereign divine weapons. The madman's expression froze, but then a sinister smile appeared on his face. He glanced at the dragons and said, I came prepared. Clang! Boom! With a series of loud clangs, rays of divine light flew out of the madman's body. There were blades, spears, swords, halberds, everything. The aura they emitted was that of a sovereign divine weapon. There were 8 of them. What? The white-eyed wolf looked at the madman, dumbfounded. The dragon race's group, Bing Running's group, and even Princess Huafeng's group were shocked to the extreme. How could there be 8 sovereign divine weapons? Even Long Chen and the young man looked at the madman, dumbfounded. This guy was too abnormal. 8 sovereign divine weapons, the ancient castle, the horsetail whisk, the sword of the Grim Reaper, the fire phoenix divine jade, the fire phoenix sword, the fire phoenix blade, and the divine phoenix spear. There were a total of 15 sovereign divine weapons. In just an instant, Qin Feiyang's side turned the situation around. This was because the dragons only had 11 sovereign divine weapons, including Bing Running's 3. I wanted to help them, but I didn't expect them to have such a terrifying foundation. The young man shook his head and yawned lazily. The snow python on his shoulder smiled bitterly when it heard this. Long Chen's eyes flashed when he heard the young man's words. He was here to help Qin Feiyang. It seemed like the relationship between the two was not simple. Kiki, the madman, took a step forward and landed beside Qin Feiyang with the white-eyed wolf. He glanced at Bing Running and the dragons and said arrogantly, Continue if you dare. See how I'll deal with you. Yeah, weren't you very arrogant before? Come, come, come. The white-eyed wolf was also extremely arrogant. Previously, his physical body had not been destroyed, but it had been reconstructed. After consuming the Divine Life Pill, Primordial Sea Divine Pill, and Divine Sun Divine Pill, his broken physical body, Sea of Chi, and Sea of Consciousness were all recovering rapidly. Looking at the ingrate and lunatic Bing Running and the rest of the dragon tribes, people's faces sank. Boom! It was at this moment. The dragon's Eye of Heaven finally met with Qin Feiyang's Eye of Heaven. The moment the two met, a dazzling divine light burst out and merged with each other. At this moment, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Strong winds howled and gave birth to all kinds of strange phenomena. In just a few breaths, a mighty aura rolled out from above Qin Feiyang. Everyone looked up at the Eye of Heaven. It was completely different from the previous Eye of Heaven. At this moment, the Eye of Heaven was black and white, like a mysterious taiji pattern. It was as if there was a world within it, with mountains and rivers, the sun, the moon, the stars, and thousands of gods and demons. That Eye of Heaven seemed to be able to steal the sun and steal the fortune of heaven and earth. "This is the complete Eye of Heaven," Long Qin murmured. Everyone present couldn't suppress a sense of awe in their hearts. It was as if there was really an Eye of Heaven looking down on all living beings. "Senior brother, activate your law profound," Qin Feiyang suddenly shouted. The madman quivered, and the law of death and the law of destruction roared out. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the Eye of Heaven sprinkled a black and white divine light, enveloping the madman's too profound. Immediately after, under countless shocked gazes, the purple-gold dragon god also rapidly manifested two supreme, profound meanings in the air above it. Success! The madman's eyes trembled. As far as Qin Feiyang was concerned, this was a great transformation. It could be said that the evolution of the Eye of Heaven allowed Qin Feiyang's combat strength to instantly increase by countless times. "Ha! Qin Feiyang looked at the two replicated profound and couldn't help but laugh. The next moment, he looked at Bing Running with a cold light in his eyes. The two profound meanings instantly shattered the sky as they madly rushed towards Bing Running. "Your Highness, be careful!" The white-haired old man, the white-haired old woman, and the middle-aged man took a step forward, and the power of law surged out. The white-haired old woman activated the law of Ice's profound. The middle-aged man activated the law of Death's profound. The white-haired old man waved his hand, and a surge of space-time energy rolled out. The law of space-time's profound also instantly appeared. It could be said that no one present could stop the supreme profundities of the two supreme laws and the supreme profundities of the law of ice. However, Qin Feiyang's face was full of ridicule. "Copy!" Following his shout, the white-haired old woman and the other two's profound were also successfully copied. In this way, in addition to the madman's two profound, there were a total of 5 profound. The 5 supreme ultimates brought with them a torrential might as they blasted out. With a loud bang, the 3 supreme ultimates of the white-haired old lady and the other 2 were shattered in the void. Then the 5 supreme ultimates blasted towards Bing Running and the other 3. "Protect Her Highness!" The white-haired old man roared. A supreme grade, heaven-defying armor appeared on their bodies, but it was meaningless. Facing the 5 profound, it shattered on the spot. Immediately after, the 5 profound meanings blasted onto the 3 of them, and a world-destroying aura burst forth, instantly engulfing the white-haired old woman, the other 2, and Bing Running. Screams rang out. In just a few breaths, the 3's bodies shattered. Bing Running was even more miserable, and even her divine soul was annihilated. Seeing that the 4 of them were about to lose their lives, the Ice Phoenix sword, and the other 2 sovereigns' divine weapons rushed back and swept up their divine souls before retreating far away. Chapter 3584. looking at the three sovereign divine weapons and the divine souls of Bing Running's group. Everyone present couldn't help but shudder. The Eye of Heaven was too terrifying to be able to replicate the ultimate profundity. One had to know that the white-haired old woman and the other two were super experts. But in front of Qin Feiyang, they were as weak as babies. The current Qin Feiyang was simply invincible. Haha. From now on, the demon hall will step onto the path of light. Elder Hu laughed inwardly, although Qin Feiyang might not be a match for the 4 forbidden zones. He believed that it was only a matter of time before he surpassed them. If even the 4 forbidden zones were suppressed by Qin Feiyang, the demon hall would definitely benefit from it. Good. Our Rogue Cultivator Alliance will step onto unprecedented glory because of these little guys. The Deputy Alliance leader, the Hall of Famers, was also very excited. How could they not be? Qin Feiyang and Feng Zi were their disciples. The two of them had achieved what they had today, so they felt proud too. It could be said that the Demon Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance benefited the most from the rise of Qin Feiyang and the others. Of course, there was also the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion's despair was inextricably linked to Qin Feiyang. Although Yueqing and Yi Miao's cultivation were not very high, they had chosen the right side. If they had betrayed Qin Feiyang in the face of Pei Tianhong's threat, the Heavenly Joy Pavilion would have disappeared from the Sky Cloud realm. In fact, not only the Demon Hall, but the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Heavenly Joy Pavilion were also making a huge gamble. In the end, it turned out that they had made the right bet. In the blink of an eye, the 3 sovereign divine weapons carried Bing Running and the others far away and turned back to look at Qin Feiyang. Because their physical bodies had been destroyed, the 4 of them had revealed their true forms. They were all ice phoenixes. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fear. They looked at Qin Feiyang as if they were looking at the Divine King. This is the legendary divine beast, Ice Phoenix. It seems that the so-called Feng people are all phoenixes. Usually it's hard to even see a phoenix. But now, a Feng people actually came out. How many phoenixes are there in a clan? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the divine souls of Bing Running's group. But what shocked them the most was that even the divine beast phoenix could not withstand a single blow from Qin Feiyang. Pyrotechnic glow swept his gaze over Bing Running and the others. Suddenly, his spirits rose as he looked at Princess Hoofing and transmitted his voice. "I understand, sis." Ah, Princess Hoofing was stunned. What did she understand? Pyrotechnic glow glanced at the people around him and said mysteriously, "You must have made a promise to Qin Feiyang." What the hell? Princess Hoofing was stunned. Private pledge of marriage? What the hell was this? Otherwise, why would Father make the Fire Phoenix, Divine Jade, and Fire Phoenix Sword listen to his orders? "Sister, I really didn't expect you to be so secretive. You actually got me a brother-in-law without anyone knowing." Pyrotechnic glow snickered. Princess Hoofing's face darkened as she gave Pyrotechnic glow a smack on the head. It was so painful that Pyrotechnic glow cried out. High up in the sky, Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, and the white-eyed wolf all raised their heads and looked at the Eye of Heaven between the brows of the purple-gold dragon soul. Their eyes were filled with shock. The complete Eye of Heaven was too powerful. It was simply unrivaled. Frenzy suddenly laughed and said, "Now you feel better, right?" In the past, Qin Feiyang always said that the Eye of Heaven was inferior to his and the white-eyed wolf's battle soul. But now, the Eye of Heaven had evolved and displayed heaven-defying abilities. In terms of combat power, it was not inferior to his and the white-eyed wolf's battle soul. No, they couldn't say that. Their 3 battle souls each had their own merits and couldn't be measured by combat power. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. But to be honest, he still had many doubts in his heart. The Eye of Heaven was naturally powerful. After all, it was one of the 10 strongest battle souls. But the white-eyed wolf and Frenzy's battle souls weren't among the 10 strongest battle souls. Secondly, they had never been seen in the world before. How could it be so powerful? One deprived one's cultivation, battle soul, and power of law. One had a large range of petrification that was impossible to guard against and unavoidable. These were all in the category of super-killing moves. The white-eyed wolf waved his claws and glanced at the fire dragon not far away. He bared his teeth and said, "Hurry up and deal with business. There's still a reckless fellow that hasn't been dealt with." Swoosh! Qin Fei Yang and Frenzy immediately looked at the fire dragon. The fire dragon's pupils constricted. The power of the Eye of Heaven was obvious to all. And now, Frenzy had returned with 8 sovereign divine weapons. Even without the help of the Feng people, Qin Fei Yang's side was enough to catch all the dragons in one fell swoop. Frenzy looked at Long Qin and laughed. "Old friend," the fire dragon stopped old Qin from fusing with the Eye of Heaven. "Is this your idea? What do you think?" Long Qin smiled faintly. "You're asking me. How would I know?" Frenzy grinned. The power of law in his body was ready to move. Long Qin didn't show any signs of nervousness. He looked at the fire dragon and said indifferently, "You planted the evil fruit, so you have to deal with it yourself." This sentence was enough to prove that the fire dragon's previous actions were not ordered by him. When the fire dragon heard this, his eyes trembled. Obviously, Long Qin wouldn't help. He regretted it now. He knew that these 2 people and 1 wolf were difficult to deal with. So why did he take the initiative to provoke them? In fact, at that time he thought that he would definitely be able to stop Qin Fei Yang from fusing with the Eye of Heaven. After all, there was the help of the second princess of the dragons and the others. But he didn't expect that Frenzy would appear halfway. Not only did his strength increase by leaps and bounds, but he also brought 8 sovereign divine weapons, directly shattering his wishful thinking. Qin Fei Yang took a step forward and swept his blade-like gaze at the fire dragon. "Others don't know about the grudge between you and me, but those who know us well are well aware of it. So let's not talk nonsense and start directly." The fire dragon's eyes sank. He looked at Long Qin, then at the young man, and finally at the castle and the other sovereign divine weapons. Then he suddenly turned around and fled without looking back. What a joke! Even if he fought to the death to defeat Qin Fei Yang, there was still Frenzy and 15 sovereign divine weapons. Also, as a nemesis for so many years, he understood Qin Fei Yang's personality and knew that Qin Fei Yang was determined to kill him. So in the end, no matter what, the one who would die would definitely be him. Only a fool would accept a sure death situation. The blood mark between his eyebrows released a dazzling light. With the help of the blood mark, even if it was just teleportation, its speed would be comparable to that of a supreme-level auxiliary divine spell. However, it wasn't easy to wait for the fire dragon to take the initiative to appear. Would Qin Fei Yang and the white-eyed wolf let him escape so easily? Obviously not. Seal the sea area. Following Qin Fei Yang's low shout, the ancient castle, Horsetail Whisk, Grim Reaper's sword, Flaming Phoenix, Divine Jade, and Flaming Phoenix sword immediately erupted with world-destroying divine might and swept in all directions. Seal the sea area. The second princess of the dragons was shocked. She looked at the black dragon mirror next to her and shouted, "Hurry up and leave!" The eyes of the third prince and the others were also trembling. Once the sea area was sealed by Qin Fei Yang's sovereign divine weapon, they would be like turtles in a jar and wouldn't be able to escape. Once the fire dragon was dealt with, they would be the next. Clang! The black dragon mirror and the other divine weapons of the 8 sovereigns quickly came to life. They took the princes, princesses, and their followers and fled for their lives. Escape? The mad scientist frowned. Don't worry about them for now. Qin Fei Yang waved his hand. The second princess of the dragons and the others weren't comparable to the fire dragon. Although the fire dragon was powerful and had the blood mark, He didn't have a sovereign divine weapon. And the second princess of the dragons and the others all had a sovereign divine weapon. It wouldn't be easy to kill them, and there was also the unfathomable Longchin, not to mention his identity as the son of the ice dragon. Qin Feiyang was quite wary of his evolved domain of divinity. More importantly, if an all-out war really broke out, with so many sovereign divine weapons, it would be a devastating disaster for the Sky Cloud Ocean. In addition, if he fought with the dragons and the others, the fire dragon might take advantage of the chaos to escape. If he had to choose between the fire dragon and the second princess of the dragons, he would definitely choose to kill the fire dragon without hesitation. Because this wasn't just a personal grudge, it was also a request from the fire python. So, he didn't care about anything else. But this big problem had to be dealt with today. The 5 sovereign divine weapons crossed the void and appeared thousands of miles away in the blink of an eye. Their divine power was vast and mighty as they directly sealed off the sea area. Under the lead of the sovereign divine weapons, the second princess of the dragons and the others escaped the sealed area. But no matter how fast the fire dragon was, could he be faster than the sovereign divine weapons? As for Longchin and the youth, they were still sitting on the side. One was drinking tea, and the other was drinking wine. They didn't care at all. Do you really want to force me? The fire dragon looked at the sealed area and turned to glare at Qin Feiyang. You and I are destined to fight. What else is there to say? Qin Feiyang took a step forward and walked toward the fire dragon step by step. His blood-stained hair fluttered in the wind, like a god-demon descending to the world. Okay. The fire dragon's expression immediately turned malevolent. A terrifying dragon's might erupted from it. However, it wasn't directed at Qin Feiyang. Instead, it was directed at the surrounding crowd. These people didn't have sovereign divine weapons and knew that Qin Feiyang wouldn't hurt them, so they didn't escape. At this moment, seeing the fire dragon coming toward them, their faces changed color. This bastard is crazy. Qin Feiyang is right in front of you. Why didn't you go to Qin Feiyang and come to us instead? Bullying the weak is their sense of accomplishment. No matter how strong you become, you're still the same. Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with disgust. Back at the divine site, the fire dragon used the fire python's father as a scapegoat to escape from him. It was also because of this that the fire python's father died. Today he was going to use these innocent people to threaten him. How could he be worthy of being a divine beast? As a divine dragon, did he not have any sense of shame? Qin Feiyang shouted, "Ancient castle, move everyone!" Boom! The 5 sovereigns' divine weapons surged toward the crowd with overwhelming might. In the blink of an eye, everyone who was watching the battle appeared outside the barrier. This included Elder Hua, He Zhongtian, the Alliance Master, and Princess Hoofing. The Fire Phoenix Saber and the Divine Phoenix Spear had also returned to Pyrotechnic Glow's side. After all, their help was no longer needed. Moreover, they had to protect Pyrotechnic Glow and the others against any sudden attacks from Bing Runing and the other 3. Chapter 3585. Damn it! Looking at the empty sea around it, the fire dragon was flustered and exasperated. Don't do such pointless things again. Your only choice now is to do your best to defeat me. Qin Feiyang stepped into the sky with an imposing aura. Although he had been severely injured when fighting with the first prince of the dragons, he had taken the divine life pill immediately. Coupled with the healing power of the fire of life and bloodline power, his injuries were basically healed. Hearing this, the fire dragon turned around and stared at Qin Feiyang gloomily. If I defeat you, will you let me go? Of course. As long as you have the ability. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay, then come at me. The fire dragon suddenly roared, and its body instantly expanded to more than 10,000 feet. It was like a majestic mountain range, and its dragon might filled the sky. Boom! A huge tail smashed the sky, and slapped toward Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang punched out, and the power in his body surged out. In an instant, the fist and the huge tail collided, but it was Qin Feiyang who was sent flying. No way! The white-eyed wolf was stunned. What do you mean, no way? Don't forget, he has activated the power of the blood mark. Whether it's physical body, speed, or power, he is no weaker than old Qin. The madman pouted. Huh. You seem to know that we have broken the limits of our physical bodies. The white-eyed wolf looked at the madman in surprise. Nonsense. I came to White Crane Island before you. It's just that you didn't notice. The madman rolled his eyes. Came before us? The white-eyed wolf was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, Then why did you hide in the sky without saying a word? I wanted to give you a surprise. The madman bared his teeth. Surprise? The white-eyed wolf was speechless, bringing 8 Dominator Divine weapons at once. Was the shock not enough? Although you've broken through the limits of your physical body, I'm telling you, don't underestimate this Emperor. This Emperor's strength is not something a small character like the first prince of the dragons can compare to. The fire dragon laughed wildly. With a flash, he disappeared before Qin Feiyang's eyes. His speed was so fast that it was almost impossible for the naked eye to catch him. The next moment, Qin Feiyang felt a great sense of crisis coming from behind him. Needless to say, the fire dragon was definitely behind him. Boom! Without any hesitation, he turned around and threw a punch, which collided with the fire dragon's dragon claw. The fire dragon's strength was truly terrifying. Qin Feiyang was once again sent flying, blood gushing out. I didn't expect the fire dragon to be so strong. Yeah, this is simply unexpected. The surrounding crowd was shocked beyond words. Qin Feiyang's physical body was comparable to a supreme-level, heaven-defying divine weapon, but he couldn't defeat the fire dragon. Could it be that the fire dragon's physical body had broken through the next limit? Wait, was there a limit above the supreme-level, heaven-defying divine weapon? No. Look at the blood word mark between his eyebrows. His strength should be related to the blood word mark. Everyone was discussing. The battle between Qin Feiyang and the fire dragon became more and more intense. After repeated tests, Qin Feiyang discovered that the fire dragon's physical body and strength were indeed above his. The blood word mark was indeed terrifying. In fact, the fire dragon's strength had always been weak, just like the battle in the Nether King's Hell. If it wasn't for the blood word mark, the fire dragon wouldn't have been able to fight against him. However, the current him was no longer the same as before. Boom! The cause and effect law and the destruction law were both activated. It was as if 2 gods and demons had appeared in the world. Accompanied by a scream, the fire dragon's huge body was sent flying. Its dragon scales were shattered and its body was covered in blood. Dragon blood dyed the sky red. His physical body and strength are indeed inferior, but in terms of the profound laws, old Qin has the absolute advantage. Frenzy laughed. It shouldn't be that simple. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. What do you mean? Frenzy was taken aback and looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. The white-eyed wolf said, I don't know, but I have a feeling that the power of the blood word mark hasn't really erupted yet. When did you start to believe in intuition? Frenzy was speechless. Wasn't it old Qin's specialty to believe in intuition? Sometimes you have to believe in intuition. The white-eyed wolf whispered. You're really infuriating. The fire dragon roared and activated the destruction law's profound laws. A huge hand covered the sky and slammed toward Qin Feiyang's 2 profound laws. Qin Feiyang looked at the destruction god, and his gaze suddenly trembled. He looked at the center of the destruction god's eyebrows and discovered that there was also a blood character imprint. No way! Frenzy also noticed this scene, and his face was full of shock. It seems that my intuition has really appeared. The white-eyed wolf muttered. But this was too unbelievable. The blood word mark could actually be added to the profound laws. The profound laws were already very powerful. With the addition of the blood word mark, wouldn't it be invincible? As expected, along with a loud explosion, Qin Feiyang's two great ultimates were shattered in the void, and he spat out a mouthful of old blood. How is this possible? Qin Feiyang's eyes were also filled with disbelief. With the addition of the blood word mark, the destruction god's lethality had far surpassed the profound laws. This is the strength of this emperor. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Wrong. I'm afraid of your sovereign divine weapon. As long as you don't use your sovereign divine weapon, I can kill you as easily as stepping on an ant. The fire dragon laughed maniacally. The destruction god stomped toward Qin Feiyang. The terrifying power caused the void to collapse and turn into chaos. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. He used the space-time step and retreated like lightning. But the fire dragon seemed to have expected Qin Feiyang to do this. With a flash, he appeared above Qin Feiyang and smashed his tail down. Dong! Qin Feiyang's entire body fell into the sea below like a blood-stained meteor, causing huge waves. So powerful, old Qin is completely at a disadvantage. The mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf couldn't help but frown. If this situation continued, Qin Feiyang would really have to activate his slaughter domain or use his sovereign divine weapon to fight. So the real enemy is him. Elder Hua and the others finally understood. Compared to the first prince of the dragon clan, this fire dragon was much stronger. In the past, people like Elder Hua had heard a lot about the fire dragon from Qin Feiyang and the others. But in their opinion, no matter how strong the fire dragon was, he couldn't be Qin Feiyang's match. They didn't expect him to be this strong. This was the first time they had seen the fire dragon in action. They were deeply shocked by the fire dragon's strength. Without the slaughter domain or the sovereign divine weapon, what are you? You're nothing. The fire dragon looked down at the sea below and laughed. What are you if you don't have the blood word mark? The mad scientist said unhappily. That's right. Before the battle, we didn't say that we weren't allowed to activate the slaughter domain or use the sovereign divine weapon. But now, little Qin Zi has voluntarily given up on these methods. Instead of thanking him, you're still so arrogant. May I ask who gave you the courage? How can you be so thick-skinned? The white-eyed wolf also had a look of disdain. What a joke. Did I say not to activate the slaughter domain? He was the one who was arrogant and didn't want to activate the slaughter domain. Now he's mocking me? Who's the thick-skinned one here? The fire dragon sneered. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. He shook his head and said, I'm ashamed of my inferiority to your shamelessness. I'm also very impressed. The mad scientist was also speechless. After being in the martial world for so many years, what kind of person hadn't he seen? But no one could compare to the fire dragon's shamelessness. Splash! A huge wave rose, and Qin Feiyang broke through it. A cold light flashed in the fire dragon's eyes. The destruction god, who was standing in the sky above the sea, immediately slapped out. Very strong indeed, but that's all. Qin Feiyang said indifferently and activated his 3,000 incarnations. He finally activated the 3,000 incarnations. It seems that the fire dragon is indeed much stronger than the first prince. The demon Hall master muttered. Of course, with the fire dragon's strength he can instantly kill us, Chu Yin said with a serious expression. This was the first time she had seen such a terrifying existence. It's been a long time the fire dragon scanned the 3,000 incarnations, and scenes of the past appeared in his mind. But then his eyes were filled with disdain as he roared. 3,000 incarnations are useless. You dare to look down on us? Beat it. The 3,000 incarnations were furious and activated their two supreme, profound meanings. 1,000 of them charged toward the destruction god. The other 2,000 charged toward the fire dragon. These are the 3,000 incarnations that the first prince of the dragons has been talking about. What the hell is this? They actually have independent consciousness and can activate their supreme profound meanings. Hua Zihue was dumbfounded when he saw this. No wonder it was called Qin Feiyang's strongest trump card. Just think about it. A single Qin Feiyang was already so terrifying, let alone 3,000 Qin Feiyangs. They were simply existences akin to gods and devils. Rumble. The 1,000 incarnations charging toward the destruction god were like moths to a flame, constantly shattering and disappearing. But the 2,000 incarnations charging toward the fire dragon were unstoppable. In the blink of an eye, the fire dragon was covered in blood. Not a single part of his body was intact. Roar. Accompanied by a painful howl, his two dragon claws shattered, and his dragon tail was torn apart by dozens of incarnations. Several bloody holes appeared on his huge body, and dragon blood spurted out like a waterfall. Do you still dare to look down on us? You really don't know what's good for you. Brothers, tear it into pieces. Later, let me stew it in oil and stir-fry it to go with wine. The 2,000 incarnations charged forward like a pack of hungry wolves, using all kinds of supreme profound meanings and heaven-defying techniques. Facing such a situation, even if the fire dragon had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to handle it. The outcome would be so miserable that no one could bear to look at it. Chapter 3586. Damn, he's too strong. Sister, work harder and make him my brother-in-law. Pyrotechnic Glow clenched his fists, his eyes filled with admiration. Obviously, Qin Feiyang had successfully gained another little fan. Stop talking nonsense. Princess Huifeng's veins popped out on her forehead when she heard this. How old are you? Why are you still so frivolous every day? It's true. I like him a lot. If I were a woman, I would definitely marry him. Pyrotechnic Glow chuckled. Princess Huifeng couldn't help but give this boastful brother a knock on his head. She then raised her head and looked at the battlefield. Needless to say, this human man really has a fascinating charm. 3,000 incarnations crazily attacked the fire dragon. Qin Feiyang himself was like an outsider. After taking a divine life pill, he stood on the sea and watched the show. You've gone too far. You've gone too far. Die all of you. Forbidden art, heaven's annihilation. Hulong roared furiously. The blood character mark on its forehead actually separated and erupted with a wave of fire that could burn the heavens and destroy the world. The 2,000 clones didn't even have time to cry out before they were annihilated. Not only that, even the sky and void were melting. Forbidden technique. The madman and the white-eyed wolf's eyes trembled, because at this moment, even they felt a strand of lethal danger. The young man's eyes flashed slightly and whispered, "This forbidden technique is a super forbidden technique. Qin Feiyang isn't its opponent." What? The snow python was shocked. If even the young man said so, one could imagine how terrifying this forbidden technique was. Qin Feiyang, even if you activate the slaughter zone, it's too late. Go to hell. The fire dragon laughed sinisterly. The waves of fire formed by the blood-written imprint suddenly turned into a torrent, rolling towards Qin Feiyang. On the battlefield, Qin Feiyang could clearly feel just how terrifying this wave of fire was. The young man wasn't exaggerating at all. This taboo technique was more than enough to instantly kill him. He never expected that the fire dragon would have such a terrifying trump card hidden up his sleeve. The heavens had fallen. This was an attempt to annihilate everything in the world. However, although he was facing a fatal crisis, Qin Feiyang did not panic at all. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Finally, it stopped at the Eye of Heaven. Since it was a forbidden technique, the Eye of Heaven should be able to replicate it. Without hesitation, the purple gold dragon soul roared and activated the Eye of Heaven. You want to replicate a forbidden technique? The fire dragon laughed without restraint. Copy! Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to him. With a loud roar, the intertwining black and white divine light surged toward the wave of fire like a tide. The next moment, above the purple gold dragon soul, a wave of fire appeared, exuding the power of destruction. What? The fire dragon's laughter stopped abruptly, and his eyes almost popped out. Looks like you don't know much about the Eye of Heaven. Apart from divine artifacts and the like, it can replicate all kinds of attacks. Qin Feiyang's eyes turned cold. With a wave of his hand, the wave of fire surged out and rushed toward the wave of fire above. In fact, he was also quite surprised. Because the Eye of Heaven had evolved, he didn't know the details. In other words, he didn't know whether it could be replicated or not. But fortunately, the Eye of Heaven was still as heaven-defying as before. The two forbidden techniques collided with a loud bang. Heaven and earth roared, and the sky collapsed as if it was the end of the world. Impossible. No matter how heaven-defying the Eye of Heaven is, there should be a limit. This is a forbidden technique. It's known as the strongest forbidden technique. How can it be replicated? Looking at this scene, Fire Dragon seemed to have gone mad. As the two taboo techniques were destroyed, Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at Hua Long's glabella. To his surprise, he discovered that the blood character mark on Hua Long's glabella no longer existed. In other words, this taboo technique consumes the entire blood imprint as the price. No wonder the fire dragon hadn't activated this forbidden technique before. It turned out that as long as this forbidden technique was activated, the blood mark would completely disappear. Once the blood mark disappeared, it would lose the power of the mark and become an ordinary divine dragon. The outcome has been decided. Long Qin shook his head and smiled. Although the forbidden technique was powerful, the Eye of Heaven was even more heaven-defying. If the fire dragon had challenged Qin Feiyang before the first prince, then Qin Feiyang would have died without a doubt. Because if the Eye of Heaven hadn't evolved, Qin Feiyang wouldn't be able to block this forbidden technique without activating the slaughter domain or using the sovereign divine weapon. Unfortunately, the fire dragon chose to fight after the evolution of the Eye of Heaven. However, this Eye of Heaven was indeed ridiculously strong. It was fine if it could copy a supreme profound, but it could also copy a super forbidden technique. The present Qin Feiyang was already in an invincible position in the sky cloud realm as long as the super powerhouses of the 4 forbidden zones did not come out. Let's end our feud here. Qin Feiyang took a step forward. 2 great, profound meanings appeared, and he charged into the sky. You want to end it? Impossible. This emperor hasn't lost yet, and I won't lose. The fire dragon roared hysterically. The law of lightning and the law of destruction surged out, attacking Qin Feiyang's 2 supreme profundities. But was it useful? How could the thunder laws compare to the supreme law? With a loud bang, the 2 supreme profound shattered. Without the support of the blood mark, they seemed vulnerable. Following closely, the 2 supreme profound karma laws and destruction laws fiercely bombarded the fire dragon's body. Roar! With a painful howl, the fire dragon's huge body was torn apart. Don't kill me! The fire dragon's soul suddenly left its body, and its divine soul hurriedly begged in the void. No matter how arrogant a person was, they were afraid of death. The fire dragon was no exception. In the face of death, it didn't hesitate to put down its so-called self-esteem. But it never thought that with the grudges it had accumulated with Qin Feiyang over the years, would Qin Feiyang let it go? Throughout the whole process, Qin Feiyang didn't show the slightest bit of sympathy or pity. The big hand burst out, and the power of 6 laws intertwined, exuding an aura that could destroy heaven and earth, and slapped the fire dragon's divine soul. "No, I beg you!" However, he just opened his mouth when Qin Feiyang's palm descended, and Huolong's soul was instantly obliterated in space. Only a miserable cry of despair remained, and it reverberated in the heavens and the earth for a long time. "Damn, this guy is too strong now," the white-eyed wolf muttered. "He is strong," Madman nodded and laughed. "But I'm not bad either. If we really fight, you're not his opponent, okay?" The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes at Madman, then pondered for a while and laughed. "But when this brother breaks through to the Perfection's sovereign realm, then the 2 of us can join forces and kill him." "Who's joining forces with you? So low class." Madman rolled his eyes. "Look at how arrogant you are. If this brother breaks through to the Perfection's sovereign realm, I'll directly crush you and little Qinzi. The 2 of you are just small fries." The white-eyed wolf's face was full of disdain. Madman's face turned black. Too lazy to bicker with it. He looked at Long Qin, who was sitting there. Even if the fire dragon died in the hands of Qin Feiyang, Long Qin didn't show any regret or anger. "This isn't right. He's too calm." Could it be, suddenly? Madman's eyes trembled as he landed in front of Qin Feiyang and asked, could it be that the fire dragon also left his divine soul in the dragon nest? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback as he turned to look at Madman. Then the 2 of them looked at Long Qin. No need to doubt. If he really left his divine soul in the dragon nest, he wouldn't be fighting with you guys like this. Long Qin smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. Long Qin wouldn't lie to them. Moreover, for Long Qin, the fire dragon was just a small character. After all, the 2 sovereigns were even willing to give the ice dragon sacred sword and celestial dragon god sword to the blood hall. In other words, he had the capital to be willful. Who told him to have such a powerful father? Outside, the second princess of the dragons looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf in horror, then looked at the third prince and the others and said in a deep voice, "We can't stay outside any longer. Return to the dragon nest immediately." Yes, the other princes and princesses also nodded. The current Qin Feiyang was too strong, especially Madman. This was especially true for Madman. 8 sovereign divine weapons were enough to make any force tremble in fear. If they continued to stay outside, they would be digging their own graves. Decisive, the group of princes and princesses let their respective sovereign divine weapons take them and their followers, and disappeared at the end of the sea without looking back. Seeing this, Bing Running and the others didn't dare to stay for a moment and ran away with their tails between their legs. Even the little princess of the dragons didn't stay, because she also knew that the moment the first prince of the dragons died, her cooperation with Qin Feiyang had already ended. If she didn't leave, Qin Feiyang and the others would definitely not show mercy to her. Damn, they ran so fast. Madman was planning to deal with these people, but he didn't expect them to disappear without a trace in the blink of an eye. They're not stupid. I'm guessing that he already had the intention to retreat the moment you appeared. The reason they waited until now is purely to see if the fire dragon has the ability to kill me. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed, but he didn't chase after them. Because the sovereign divine weapons took them away, it was impossible to catch up. This time he was already very satisfied to obtain the Eye of Heaven and kill his mortal enemy, the fire dragon. Long Qin saw everything and put down his teacup. He stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. Brother Qin, thank you for letting me enjoy such a wonderful performance today. You're not going to fight with us. Madman looked at Long Qin in surprise. Long Qin laughed. The future is long. There will be a chance in the future. But what if I don't let you go? Madman chuckled. Long Qin laughed and said indifferently, that depends on whether you can make me stay or not. Madman narrowed his eyes and the aura of the power of laws spread out from his body. What's going on? Aren't they old friends? But why does it look like they're going to go all out? The onlookers who were watching from the outside all revealed looks of bewilderment. Chapter 3587. For a time, the atmosphere here became solemn. In fact, everyone did know that the reason why Qin Feiyang and Madman treated Longqin as an old friend was because they felt that this person was not bad. Compared to the other dragons, Long Chen's character was indeed worthy of respect. For example, in the ancient world, humans were like ants in the eyes of the dragons. Only Long Chen respected humans. He even scolded Long Zun because of this. For humans to respect dragons, the dragons must first respect humans. To rule a region, one didn't rely on force, but kindness and kindness. But at that time, not only did Long Zun not listen, he even scolded him, saying that being soft-hearted would make it difficult for one to achieve great things. To be honest, if Long Zun listened to Long Qin at that time, perhaps the dragons of the ancient world wouldn't have been exterminated that year, because Long Zun and Long Chen's philosophy and character were incompatible. They had once doubted whether Long Qin was Long Zun's biological son. Therefore, although they were opponents, whether it was back then or now, Qin Feiyang and the others had always had a good impression of Long Qin. The tense atmosphere caused the scene to fall into a dead silence. Boom! Splash! Suddenly, the sea below erupted with a powerful aura, and the waves rose thousands of feet high. Qin Feiyang and the others were startled and hurriedly looked down at the sea below. This is the aura of the law of death. Madman scanned the sea, his face full of doubts. What's going on? Why would the aura of the law of death suddenly erupt from the sea? The aura of the law became more and more terrifying, and the aura of death shrouded all directions. Gradually, in addition to the aura of the law, there was also a dragon aura that erupted. This is Qin Feiyang, Madman, and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. They couldn't be more familiar with this aura. It was the crown prince of the dragons. This person didn't die. Boom! Suddenly, above the sea, a dark red waning moon slowly rose, and the world here instantly turned dark red, like Azura, purgatory. This is paramount profundity of the law of death, dusk of the gods. Qin Feiyang and the others felt their hearts tremble. Not only did the first prince of the dragons not die, but he had also comprehended the ultimate profundity of the law of death. Asterisk crash, asterisk, very soon. Amidst the surging waves, an aged figure slowly emerged. Who else could it be but the first prince of the dragons? Because he had consumed too much of his life force to activate the golden dragon domain, he looked extremely old. His eyes were closed and his breathing was even, as if he was in a deep sleep. I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. Madman shook his head. A person who was bound to die actually managed to comprehend a supreme Tao at the crucial moment. Not only did he save his life, but his strength also soared. Ding! With a deafening dragon roar, the first prince of the dragon clan revealed his true form. It was a 5-clawed golden dragon that was thousands of feet long. The essence qi of this sea rushed into his body like a tide, and the life force he had consumed was quickly restored. Right at this moment, Long Chen waved his hand and thousands of divine life pills appeared. They were all in the shape of 10 dragons, and they turned into a majestic life force that surged into the first prince's body. In an instant, the first prince of the dragons recovered more than half of his life force. Suddenly, the White-Eyed Wolf's eyes turned cold as he looked at Madman and Qin Feiyang and said with a bone-piercing killing intent, "We have to remove the roots when cutting the grass. Kill him." The Madman and Qin Feiyang looked at each other with killing intent in their eyes. Shua! But suddenly, Long Qin stepped in front of the two. "What are you doing?" Madman raised his eyebrows. Long Qin smiled faintly and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Give me face and let him go this time." Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect that Long Chen would put down his status and beg for mercy for the first prince of the dragons. Give you face? On what basis? Madman sneered. Long Chen looked at Madman and smiled. Back then, I saved Brother Qin and the White-Eyed Wolf in the Heavy Domain. This should be considered a favor. So now, you want to use this favor to save his life. The White-Eyed Wolf frowned. Long Chen nodded. The White-Eyed Wolf said, You have to think about it. A favor from us is very hard to come by. I've already thought about it. Long Chen smiled faintly. The White-Eyed Wolf frowned and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and looked up at Long Chen. He nodded and said, It's good that we don't owe each other anything. We'll do as you say. Thank you. Long Chen cupped his hands and thanked him. He stepped in front of the first prince of the dragons and opened his god's domain. A space-time crack also appeared. Immediately after, he took the first prince of the dragons and disappeared from the sight of Qin Feiyang and the others without looking back. What the hell is this? Madman was dumbfounded. One has to know that after the castle and the other sovereign weapons sealed this area, they couldn't open a transmission channel. However, Long Chen could ignore this rule. God's domain, Qin Feiyang said. God's domain? Madman was stunned. Of course, he knew about God's domain. This was Long Chen's talent. But was God's domain so heaven-defying? The current God's domain is no longer what it used to be. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. It's no longer what it used to be. Madman frowned and asked, It has evolved. Yes, this God's domain is heaven-defying now. It can even ignore the rules of the forbidden area. Qin Feiyang nodded. So powerful? Madman was stunned, as expected of their old rival. To be honest, I don't have the confidence to keep him here. After all, who knows how many tricks he has hidden? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. How could the son of the ice dragon have an undeserved reputation? Madman was speechless. In fact, he didn't really want to fight with Long Chen. He just wanted to show his attitude. No matter whose son you are, if you annoy me, I'll deal with you. Qin Feiyang turned to the youth and asked curiously, Little brother, where have you been fooling around all these years? Cough, cough. The youth coughed and said speechlessly, What do you mean fooling around? Do you think I'm one of those good-for-nothing playboys? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Of course you're different from those playboys. How about it? Why don't you stay in the Black Tortoise world? We can take care of each other. Forget it. You've been having trouble every day. I don't want to follow you and be tired every day. Isn't it nice to be alone? The youth pouted. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. Was it really okay to be so direct? All right, take care. As the youth's voice fell, the snow python soared into the sky and became several 100 feet long. The youth took a step forward and landed on the snow python's back. Suddenly, the youth thought of something and looked down at Qin Feiyang. You haven't been to the northern continent yet, right? No. Qin Feiyang shook his head and asked suspiciously, Why do you ask? Go and take a look when you have time. After the young man said that, the man and the python quickly disappeared without a trace. What do you mean? The madman and the ingrate retracted their gazes and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. How would I know? Qin Feiyang shrugged and said, Since he wants us to go to the northern continent, there should be a reason. Let's take a look when you have time. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Although they didn't know where this youth came from their previous contact, it was unlikely that he would harm them. The battle finally came to an end. The ancient castle, the Horsetail Whisk, and the Grim Reaper's sword flew through the air. The ancient castle directly entered the Black Tortoise realm, while the Horsetail Whisk and the Grim Reaper's sword disappeared into Qin Feiyang's body. The Fire Phoenix, sword, and Fire Phoenix, divine jade, also returned to Princess Hoofing's side. Idol, you are so awesome. Do you still need a little follower? Wash clothes, cook, serve tea, I can do everything. I can even warm your bed, as long as you don't mind that I'm a man. After the sovereign divine weapons were unlocked, the onlookers immediately swarmed forward. They surrounded Qin Feiyang so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Looking at these unfamiliar faces in front of him, Qin Feiyang was very moved, because these people had always supported him. Even when facing giants like the dragons and the Feng people, they didn't hesitate and chose to stand by his side. But what bed warming! He really didn't like it. Brother Qin, are those two groups of people really the dragons and the Feng people? Someone asked curiously. Yes. Haven't you always wanted to know what the core area of the Yin Demon Land and the Heavy Domain Land is? Now I'll tell you. The dragons and the Feng people live in the core area of these two forbidden areas. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. So that's how it is. I really didn't expect that there were two such terrifying forces hidden in our sky cloud realm. Brother Qin, are you and the mortal enemies? Also, why do you have the purple gold divine dragon's bloodline power? Are you also one of the dragons? Everyone was like curious babies, asking all kinds of questions at once. When facing the dragons and the others, Qin Feiyang wasn't nervous at all. But now looking at these enthusiastic people, he couldn't help but panic. Ahem, quiet down. Qin Feiyang just went through a big battle. Let him have a good rest first. Princess Huifeng came over with pyrotechnic glow and the others to help Qin Feiyang. Princess Huifeng didn't speak, but now that she did, some people immediately surrounded her. Miss, I just heard that you are also one of the Feng people. Since you are also one of the Feng people, why do you help Qin Feiyang when Bing Running wants to kill Qin Feiyang? Also, I overheard your brother saying something about brother-in-law. Are you and Qin Feiyang a couple? A couple? Qin Feiyang and the woman of the Feng people are in love. Amazing, you can even get a divine beast like the phoenix. You are really making us humans proud. Hearing this, everyone started gossiping. First Princess Fire Phoenix finally realized what it meant to be feared by gossip. Originally, there was no such thing at all, but now that people said it was as if it was true. Thank you for your trust and support. I have something to do, so I will leave first. Seeing that the situation was getting more and more chaotic, Qin Feiyang hurriedly left and used the space-time step to escape with the frenzied one and the white-eyed wolf without looking back. This kind of enthusiasm was really a bit overwhelming. Seeing this, Princess Huifeng also immediately led Pyrotechnic Glow and the others to chase after Qin Feiyang and the others. Chapter 3588. I didn't expect them to be so popular now. In the distant void, Elder Hua and the other two could not help but smile when they saw the scene. Of course. After all, they have done many good deeds in the Eastern continent all these years. Most importantly, no matter how big the commotion is, they have never implicated any innocent living beings. The Alliance Master, Hall Master, and Shen Meng walked over and chuckled softly. Elder Hua and the other two were stunned. They turned to look at the 3 humans and 2 beasts. Seeing that the Vice Alliance Master and Hall of Famers were glowing, Elder Hu could not help but tease. Old Chi, what good things have happened to you too? Why are you so happy? Aren't you asking the obvious? The Vice Alliance Master rolled his eyes at him. Elder Hu could not help but laugh. Our disciples are so outstanding. It's indeed worth being happy about. It's a pity that no one knows about it. Because they had no choice but to put on an act back then, everyone thought that they had fallen out with Qin Feiyang and the others. Naturally, no one would associate it with them. It doesn't matter if others know about it, as long as we know it in our hearts. The Hall of Famers smiled faintly. That's true. Elder Hu nodded. The Shan Meng couple asked, now that the dragons have returned to their nest, the threat to us has disappeared. Can we stop worrying about it? No. Although the dragons have returned to their nest temporarily, as long as they are still there, the danger will not be resolved. Elder Hua immediately thought to himself, "That's right. The dragons are afraid of those brats now, but they are not afraid of us. With the dragon strength, it will be easy for them to destroy the Rogue, Cultivator Alliance, and the Demonic Hall. If the dragons find out that we have been putting on an act in front of them, it will be a disaster for us. Although I don't know where Little Lunatic found so many sovereign divine weapons, they can't stay in the Demonic Hall and the Rogue, Cultivator Alliance to protect us forever. So now we have to be more cautious than before. We can't let the dragons get hold of our weakness, lest we implicate them." The Vice Alliance Master said telepathically, "Old Chi is right. It doesn't matter if you can't help. What I'm most afraid of is making things worse." The Hall of Famers nodded. The Demon Hall's Hall Master smiled to himself and said, "Let's go back. Don't think too much. Let's just live our leisurely days in peace." They exchanged glances and smiled. Then, each of them opened a space-time tunnel and left. In the distance, He Zhongtian's eyes flashed. He also activated a space-time teleportation divine artifact and left without looking back. On the other side of the sea, 2 men and 1 woman stood side by side. All 3 of them were middle-aged and emitted powerful auras. They were the 3 big shots of the North Continent's Heaven Palace. The middle-aged woman retracted her gaze and looked at the 2 middle-aged men beside her. She asked, "What do you think of this matter? What does this have to do with us? The Eastern Continent, the Western Continent, and the Southern Continent have been messed up by Qin Feiyang all these years. Only our Northern Continent is still relatively peaceful. Let's keep it that way." "That's right. We can't afford to offend the dragons and the Feng people. We can't afford to offend people like Qin Feiyang and the Madman. Since we have a chance to stay out of trouble, we must not take the initiative to provoke them," the 2 middle-aged men said. The middle-aged couple thought for a moment and nodded with a smile. "All right, let's go back." After the 3 giants left, the people gathered in the sky above the sea also left one after another with high spirits. At the same time, in the sky above an island in the distance, Qin Feiyang and the others stopped and turned around to look behind. They all had lingering fear. Princess Huifeng let out a long breath and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf. "I didn't expect you to be so popular in the Sky Cloud realm." Daifuku and Xiaofu also looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. They thought that people like Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf would definitely be infamous. Who would have thought that all they saw was respect and love? "Of course, we have done a lot of good things in the Sky Cloud realm." White-Eyed Wolf smiled proudly. "Good things?" Princess Huifeng didn't think so. "Maybe." The madman looked at them and whispered, "Old Qin, why don't you introduce us?" "There's nothing to introduce." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "What do you mean, there's nothing to introduce? I am the princess of the Fire Phoenix clan. Is it shameful for you to follow me?" Princess Huifeng raised her eyebrows. "Ahem." Qin Feiyang coughed to hide the embarrassment on his face. He looked at the madman and said, "She is the princess of the Feng people, and this pyrotechnic glow is her oviparous brother. One of them is called Daifuku, and the other is called Xiaofu. As for them..." Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 middle-aged women standing behind Pyrotechnic Glow and shook his head. "I don't know who they are." Pyrotechnic Glow quickly smiled and said, "Brother-in-law, they are Aunt May and Aunt Lon. They watched me grow up." "What the hell?" Qin Feiyang's expression froze. Brother-in-law, White-Eyed Wolf, and the madman also looked at each other. Is there something wrong with this kid's brain? Princess Huifeng, the Daifuku brothers, and Aunt May also looked extremely embarrassed. Aunt May stared at Pyrotechnic Glow, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman. She said apologetically, "Little brothers, I'm sorry. Zihui likes to joke. Please forgive him. Pyrotechnic Glow hurriedly said, Aunt May, I'm not joking. He is my brother-in-law. Pyrotechnic Glow, are you done? Princess Hoofing shouted. Pyrotechnic Glow suddenly shrank his neck. Qin Feiyang looked at this scene and couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Then he pointed at White-Eyed Wolf and looked at Pyrotechnic Glow. Your brother-in-law is him, not me. Ah. Everyone was stunned again. White-Eyed Wolf was also stunned. Then the veins on his forehead bulged. He shouted, Are you crazy? Why did you drag me into this? I don't want this unreasonable woman, even if you give her to me. What did you say? I'm unreasonable. Princess Hoofing immediately stared at White-Eyed Wolf angrily. Yes. Is there a first princess here? White-Eyed Wolf looked at her with disdain. Then why don't you tell me how I'm being unreasonable? If you don't make it clear, I won't let you off today. Princess Hoofing's face darkened. She gritted her teeth and looked so fierce that she wanted to skin White-Eyed Wolf alive. Okay, let me have a good talk with you. How did we treat you in the land of heavy regions? Although there was a little friction, we were always very polite to you. We even saved you from Bing running. But what about you? How did you repay us? You actually set Little Yin up behind our backs and made us search desperately for him outside. Ask your conscience, aren't you wicked? White-Eyed Wolf sneered. Little Yin? Princess Hoofing was stunned. It's Yun Zhongtian. White-Eyed Wolf waved his claws impatiently. Princess Hoofing's mouth twitched when she heard that. An old man in his 70s or 80s actually called someone Little Yin. Didn't he feel uncomfortable? Say something. I want to see how you can quibble today. White-Eyed Wolf looked at her mockingly. Princess Hoofing glared at White-Eyed Wolf angrily. He really did not give her any face. Old Qin, what's the situation? Frenzy looked at the White-Eyed Wolf and eldest princess, who were quarreling endlessly with a stunned expression. Qin Feiyang said to himself, You can't blame me. It was White-Eyed Wolf himself who said that he wanted to try and get along with this woman. Is that so? Frenzy suddenly seemed to have discovered a new continent as he chuckled. Brother Wolf is finally enlightened. I am relieved. I am also quite happy. And the princess of the Fire Phoenix clan is also worthy of White-Eyed Wolf. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Yes. Frenzy nodded. When White-Eyed Wolf and eldest princess quarreled, they really looked like a pair of quarrelsome lovers. Daifuku, Xiaofu, what's the situation? Isn't brother-in-law Qin Feiyang? Pyrotechnic Glow was also dumbfounded. Your Highness, what are you doing all day? This is not a problem at all. Daifuku and Brother Wolf sighed helplessly. It's not Qin Feiyang, but this wolf cub? No, absolutely not. Pyrotechnic Glow came back to his senses and rushed to Princess Hoofing's side. He glared at the White-Eyed Wolf and said, Wolf cub, don't dream of eating swan meat. Give up, I won't allow it. Daifuku and Brother Wolf looked at the sky and were speechless. Why was His Highness so worrisome? He always did what he wanted to do. I am a toad, she is a swan. White-Eyed Wolf was also stunned. Where did this sense of superiority come from? Of course. Why don't you take a look at yourself? Do you think you are worthy of my sister? Pyrotechnic Glow looked disdainful. Okay. I admit defeat when I meet you siblings. White-Eyed Wolf waved his paws, too lazy to talk nonsense. We're siblings. Wait. Today you have to tell me clearly. The person who said you is my brother. How did I provoke you? Princess Hoofing grabbed the White-Eyed Wolf's tail and said angrily, Are you done? White-Eyed Wolf raised his eyebrows. Interesting. Qin Feiyang and Madman not only didn't stop the fight, but also laughed. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang patted his head and turned to look at Madman. He asked suspiciously, "Where did you get those 8 sovereign divine weapons?" "I don't have the ability. Someone lent them to me." Madman waved his hand. "Who?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. To be able to lend Madman 8 sovereign divine weapons at once. This was not something an ordinary person could do. The most important thing was this trust in Madman. Think about it, if it wasn't for absolute trust in Madman, who would dare to lend him so many sovereign divine weapons. Could it be Big Brother? "It's not them." Madman shook his head and whispered in Qin Feiyang's ear, "It's the 8 beast emperors." "So it's them." Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. His face revealed a look of shock as he muttered, "I didn't expect them to have a sovereign divine weapon each." "Not to mention you, when I saw it, I was also shocked." Madman smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and glanced at the surrounding sea. He sighed, "It seems that this heavenly cloud sea isn't as simple as we think." Madman nodded. The heavenly cloud sea could definitely be called the 5th forbidden area of the sky cloud domain. Fortunately, the heavenly cloud sea was on their side. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 3589. What are they mumbling about? The Daifuka brothers and Aunt May had been paying attention to Qin Feiyang and Madman. "I don't know. But now, why should we follow them?" Aunt May and Madman looked suspiciously at the Daifuka brothers. The matter was over. Shouldn't they return to the phoenix nest? Daifuku said, "There is one more thing that needs the help of Qin Feiyang and the others. This matter is related to the future of the princess and the prince." Future? The more Aunt May and Madman heard, the more confused they became. How could the future of the 2 princes be related to Qin Feiyang and the others? Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at the white-eyed wolf and the first princess who were still arguing. He was speechless. "White-eyed wolf, you are a man. Can't you let her have her way? There is something wrong with your words. Why should a man let a woman have her way? Besides, do you think she looks like a woman?" The white-eyed wolf snorted. "How do I not look like a woman?" Princess Huifeng was about to explode from anger at the white-eyed wolf. Qin Feiyang and Madman smiled helplessly. With a wave of their hand, a group of people immediately appeared in the black tortoise world. Immediately, Princess Huifeng calmed down. Her eyes filled with anticipation. This is that independent world. The Daifuka brothers also looked around curiously. Compared to the Daifuka brothers, Pyrotechnic Glow and Aunt May knew nothing about the black tortoise world. The surprise on their faces was even stronger. "I mean what I say." Qin Feiyang looked at Princess Huifeng and smiled. He then looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "Take them to the cultivation room. The pills that Dan Wonkai refined are all inside." "Why should I go?" The white-eyed wolf was dissatisfied. Qin Feiyang said, "I have something to discuss with senior brother." He was actually quite depressed in his heart. What a pig brain. "Can't you see that I am creating an opportunity for you?" But he didn't know that with his cultivation, he was really causing trouble for the white-eyed wolf. Back then, the white-eyed wolf was just joking. He didn't have much interest in the first princess of the Feng people. "Hurry up and go. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Madman urged. The ingrate glared at the 2 of them, then looked at Princess Huifeng and said, "Come with me." It was rare for Princess Huifeng to not be angry. She immediately pulled Huizihue and followed the ingrate into the castle. The Dafu brothers and Aunt May looked at each other and couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, "You guys go too. The siblings need your help later." "Thank you." Daifuku cupped his hands and thanked him. Then he hurried in. "Is Brother Wolf serious this time? Why doesn't it look like it?" Madman scratched his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Don't you know it?" If we don't help it, even if a sky immortal stands in front of it, it won't be moved. Qin Feiyang was helpless. That's true. Madman nodded and smiled bitterly. Let's go to the tea garden. I will tell you about our experience in the heavy region and let you know our current relationship with the Feng people. The two entered the tea garden and sat opposite each other. Qin Feiyang drank tea, while Madman drank wine. They chatted. After a long time, Madman suddenly said, "No wonder you will help them open the door of potential. It turns out that you have an agreement with the Fire Feng people. Then let's talk about you. How did Big Brother train you?" He comprehended two supreme, profound meanings so quickly. Qin Feiyang was curious. Training? Madman's mouth twitched and said helplessly, "That's torture, okay?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "To be able to comprehend, too profound. Even if it's torture, it's still a blessing." You don't deny it, right? But to be honest, these years I have been living a life worse than death every day. Madman sighed. What about old Pei and the others? What level have they reached now? Qin Feiyang asked. The people who went this time have basically stepped into the perfection ruler realm. Even Wang Xiaojia, Qin Chen, Long Tianyu, and Zhuo Xiaoqing have stepped into the ruler realm. As for old Pei and old Wang, they were originally perfection ruler realm. Of course, they are stronger now. You have to be mentally prepared. When they come out, they will definitely give you a shock. Madman snickered. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Whether it was a surprise or a shock, as long as he became stronger, he would be happy. He asked, "What about the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang?" "I didn't notice them when I went, because that place is very big. After entering, everyone's separated. I didn't plan to come out so soon, but I heard from Big Brother that you were going to fight the Crown Prince of the Dragons, so I was worried and came out to take a look." Madman shook his head. "Then when do you plan to go back?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I can't go back. That bastard rabbit said that if I leave, I can forget about going back in the future. You know its character. It always means what it says. However, I am strong enough now. I don't need to go back." Madman waved his hand in a carefree manner. Similarly, his friendship with Qin Feiyang was touching. He would rather give up such a good cultivation environment to come out and help him. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang held his teacup and smiled. "What's the point of saying thanks between brothers?" Madman rolled his eyes and clinked his wine cup in the air. Then a smile appeared on both their faces. "Brother Qin," Brother Mo suddenly, accompanied by a hoarse voice, Yin Zhongtian flew over. "Old Yin, it's been hard on you." Madman looked up at Yun Zhongtian and smiled. No, the one who has worked hard is Brother Qin." Yun Zhongtian waved his hand. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the Death God's sword appeared and flew in front of Yun Zhongtian. Yun Zhongtian was taken aback. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Why don't we let the Death God's sword follow you first?" "It's the same." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "All right." Yun Zhongtian nodded and kept the Death God's sword. He sat by the side and looked at Madman in admiration. "Brother Mo, your strength has improved very quickly." "Of course. How can a monstrous genius be undeserved?" Madman smiled proudly. "Ha ha!" Yun Zhongtian couldn't help but laugh. He really didn't know how to be humble at all. How would he know? In Madman's dictionary, there was no such word as humble. Buzz! Suddenly, the sound transmission godstone rang. Qin Feiyang took out the sound transmission godstone and looked down. A smile appeared on his face. "Who is it?" Madman was suspicious. "Elder Hua." Qin Feiyang smiled. After awakening, he realized that not only Elder Hua, Chu Yin and the Demon Hall Master were also there. Madman smiled. "Now you guys are comfortable. The dragon's men have been scared away by us. No one will threaten you guys anymore." "Yes, we are comfortable." Elder Hua nodded. He was in a good mood. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Madman, he asked, "What kind of monsters are you two? How did you break through to the Paragon Dominator realm so quickly and even grasp two of the strongest laws? Don't be envious. This is not something you can be envious of." Madman smiled proudly. Elder Hu rolled his eyes. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "What is going on between you and the Feng people? They want to kill you and help you at the same time?" The Feng people have two races. One is the Ice Phoenix, the other is the Fire Phoenix. Qin Feiyang explained the situation simply. "So that's the case." Elder Hu nodded and said, "There is something that I have discussed with the Hall Master and Xiaoyin. We feel that there is a need to tell you." "What is it?" Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them in confusion. "Previously, when you were fighting with the Crown Prince of the Dragons, there was an old man with a white beard. You know him too. He is the storyteller in the tea house." Elder Hu said. "Storyteller?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, "I have some impression. What about him?" "This person said something very strange at the time." Elder Hu frowned. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. "Strange words?" "That's right. He said a lot about the origin of the purple gold dragon blood." Elder Hu said. "What?" Qin Feiyang suddenly stood up and asked, "What did he say?" "He said that many years ago a purple gold dragon blood appeared and fell in love with a human man." Elder Hu repeated what the white-bearded old man said without missing a single word. This, Qin Feiyang and Yun Zhongtian were dumbfounded. "What's wrong?" Madman looked at the two of them in shock. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "You don't know. When I asked Elder Hua about the Feng people, he said the same thing." "What?" Madman was stunned. Elder Hua and the other two also realized that this matter was not simple. Yun Zhongtian furrowed his brows and looked at Qin Feiyang to ask, according to what the Fiery Phoenix clan leader had said at that time, all of this was a secret, and the number of people who knew about it could be counted on one hand. How did this white-bearded old man know about it? "He's a storyteller. Could it be that he just guessed it?" Chu Yun said. "Impossible. There's no smoke without fire. Besides, if he really guessed it, there must be some deviation. How can it be exactly the same as what Elder Hu Feng people said? There must be a problem here." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. "You mean he might be someone who knows about it?" Elder Hu asked. "It's not a possibility, it's a certainty." Qin Feiyang clenched his fists. Elder Hu heard this and pondered for a while before saying, "If that's the case, then let's go to the tea house now and control him." "No need. Don't do anything about this. I'll go. Although the dragons have returned, our relationship can't be known by others." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "We know this." Elder Hu nodded. "All right then." Qin Feiyang turned off the divine sound transmission stone and turned to look at Madman, saying, "Master and the others will definitely send us a message later. Instead of waiting for them to send a message, why don't we take the initiative to send them a message and explain the situation during this period of time? Don't let them worry." "Okay." Madman took out the divine sound transmission stone. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian and said, "Elder Yin, go to the ancient castle and help keep an eye on it. Tell the white-eyed wolf to come over." "Okay." Yun Zhongtian nodded his head and got up to head straight for the ancient castle. Chapter 3590. Buzz. Not long after, the Hall of Famers, the deputy leader, the leader, and the divine python couple appeared. The Hall of Famers laughed hoarsely. "We were just about to send you a message." Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. Sure enough, it was understandable. After all, so many things had happened. As elders, they would definitely care about them first. The two of them didn't hide anything and told the leader and the others the whole story. During this time, the white-eyed wolf also joined the group chat. After that, Knowing that Qin Feiyang and the others still had important matters to deal with, the leader and the others didn't delay any longer. They reminded them to be careful and turned off the voice transmission Godstone. Xiao Yun already gave a simple explanation of the situation in the castle earlier. Actually, at the tea house, I had a feeling that this old man was a little incomprehensible. I thought it was an illusion, but I didn't expect that there really was a problem. The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and said, "Because it was the one who kidnapped the white-bearded old man, it had the most contact." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about this first. Has your energy recovered?" "Yes." The white-eyed wolf nodded, then frowned and said, "It's strange. My recovery speed seems to be at least twice as fast as before." Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other and then at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. "For example, in the past it took me an hour to recover. Now it seems that I can do it in less than an hour," the white-eyed wolf explained, his face full of suspicion. "There's such a thing?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Suddenly his eyes lit up and he said in surprise, "Could this be related to your bloodline power?" "I thought so too." The white-eyed wolf nodded. "No matter what, this is a good thing. We'll study it slowly in the future. Let's go to the tea house first." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and 2 people and 1 wolf appeared above the sea. The white-eyed wolf immediately waved its paw, and a space-time crack appeared. The 2 men and 1 wolf rushed into the passage without looking back. In the next moment, they arrived at the entrance of the tea house. Several years passed. There were no changes in the tea house. Most of the people who came here were scholars. The sound of the zither was still melodious. "Isn't this young Master Qin, young Master Mo, and Lord Golden-Winged Wolf King?" It was the same red-clothed woman who had received Qin Feiyang last time. She quickly walked out and looked at Qin Feiyang, the young man, and the white-eyed wolf with a smile. "Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden-Winged Wolf King." When the guests sitting inside heard the woman in red's words, they looked toward the door and their expressions changed drastically. "Weren't you still fighting on White Crane Island? How did you come to the tea house so quickly?" "I heard that Qin Feiyang is also a tea lover. It seems that he was also attracted by the king of tea here, the Longjing tea." A few people whispered, "Wow, it's really them. They're indeed extraordinary and handsome." A group of young women ran out of the tea house when they heard the news. When they saw Qin Feiyang and the madman, their eyes lit up. "You have good taste." The madman touched his chin and smiled narcissistically. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him and looked at the red-clothed woman with a smile. "May I ask if the storyteller is in the tea house right now?" "You are looking for the old man." The red-clothed woman was stunned. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. The red-clothed woman asked suspiciously, "Then may I ask why young master is looking for the old man? Why are you talking so much nonsense? Just say it. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you." The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows and shouted. The red-clothed woman's pupils constricted, and she hurriedly said, "Lord Wolf King, please calm down. This old man hasn't been to the tea house for a long time." The 2 people and the wolf looked at each other. The red-clothed woman asked, "I wonder if the 3 of you have heard about the old man being kidnapped last time?" "I've heard about it." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Since then, the old man has never been here again. If not for someone seeing the old man on White Crane Island not long ago, we would have thought that something had happened to him. So, I'm very sorry for making the 3 of you come here for nothing." The red-clothed woman smiled apologetically. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and waved his hand with a smile. "It's fine. Then do you know where he lives?" The madman thought for a moment and asked the red-clothed woman, "I don't know. Actually, I'm not very familiar with the old man. When he came to the tea house to tell stories, he was the one who asked for it. My young master found his stories quite interesting, so he asked him to come to the tea house to tell stories every day. The red-clothed woman smiled. I see. Qin Feiyang smiled and cupped his hands. Then I won't disturb you any longer. Young master, take care. The red-clothed woman bowed to send him off. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf turned around and walked down the street aimlessly. Why did he disappear? Could it be that he also realized that he had attracted our attention? The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. No, he didn't disappear. That red-clothed woman must know his whereabouts. Qin Feiyang shook his head. What do you mean? The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. The madman spoke first and laughed. Because this woman revealed a flaw. A flaw! The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. Why didn't it notice it? Qin Feiyang looked at the madman and said with a smile, Senior brother's insight is still so terrifying. Don't flatter me. The madman rolled his eyes and looked at the white-eyed wolf. If the two really have an ordinary relationship, if it were you, would you respect the other party? Furthermore, it was a look of respect on his face. Of course not. The white-eyed wolf shook his head without thinking. That's right. If it were anyone else, facing someone who has nothing to do with them, they would at most show kindness and would never show respect. But that woman just now, when she talked about the white-bearded old man, although she concealed it, it wasn't difficult to see her respect for the white-bearded old man. If it was, as she said, that she wasn't familiar with the white-bearded old man, then how could there be such respect in her words when facing an ordinary storyteller? The madman sneered. I see. The white-eyed wolf nodded in realization and then asked in confusion. Then why didn't you directly expose her lie? Are you stupid? It's obvious that the white-bearded old man is related to the tea house. If we exposed her face to face, wouldn't it be the same as alerting the enemy? The madman rolled his eyes at the white-eyed wolf. That's right. It's not good for us to alert the enemy. And do you think a mere staff member has the guts to lie to us? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The white-eyed wolf pondered and frowned. You mean it was the housemaster behind the tea house who made the woman say that? Who else could it be besides him? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. Now, not only the white-bearded old man, but also the entire tea house had problems. Brother Qin. Suddenly, two young men ran over. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the two young men and was slightly surprised. Both of them were around 20 years old, wearing brocade clothes and had extraordinary temperaments. Their cultivation was not bad, half-step imperishable realm. He had seen them before in the garden of the tea house. The two ran over breathlessly and nodded to the madman and the white-eyed wolf. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. The two calmed down and turned to look at the tea house. They whispered, Brother Qin, we're here to tell you a little secret. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at the white-eyed wolf curiously. Actually, the people of the tea house are very familiar with the storyteller. I remember one time when we were sitting in the tea house drinking tea, we accidentally saw the woman sending a message to the white-bearded old man. Think about it. They have established a contract bridge. How can their concern be bad? The two whispered. Well, Qin Feiyang frowned and asked, is it possible that they established a contract because of work so that they can contact each other? No, I saw that they were chatting happily. And we noticed that the woman seemed to be very respectful when facing the white-bearded old man. In fact, not only us, but everyone who used to visit the tea house thought that the white-bearded old man was the elder of the owner of the tea house. So when we heard the woman say that she was not familiar with the white-bearded old man, we were very surprised. The two shook their heads. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at the white-eyed wolf, and a light flashed in their eyes at the same time. Qin Feiyang looked at the two again and said with a smile, Then let me ask you another thing. When did the tea house appear? When did it appear? The two were stunned. When did it open for business? Qin Feiyang asked in a different way. Oh, you mean this? The two suddenly smiled and said, Let's think about it. After that, the two lowered their heads and pondered. After a while, one of the young men's eyes lit up. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and said, It should be more than 500 years ago. Yes. It was more than 500 years ago. The other young man also nodded quickly, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Because on the day of the opening, I came with a friend. More than 500 years ago, Qin Feiyang murmured. At this time he was already a little famous in the sky cloud realm. Brother Qin, dare I ask, why did you ask about the tea house? The two looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Nothing, just curious. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at the two with a smile. Thank you for telling me, brothers. When you have time next time, I will invite you to tea at the tea house. Really? Then we will be looking forward to it. The two were pleasantly surprised. Qin Feiyang smiled and cupped his hands. Then we will take our leave first. Okay. The two nodded. After walking away, Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked back. Seeing the two young men leave happily, he looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile, It seems that, as we guessed, this tea house has a lot of secrets. More than 500 years ago, if I remember correctly, we were already famous in the sky cloud realm. The madman laughed. Low-key. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Tea house, Mr. Storyteller. Interesting. Let's go. Let's meet this mysterious house master. Qin Feiyang's mind moved and activated the concealment art. The two men and the wolf immediately disappeared. Chapter 3591. Under the state of invisibility, the two humans and one wolf were simply unhindered. Not only did they smoothly enter the tea house, but they also successfully entered the teacups inside. The strange thing was, they didn't see the woman in red in the garden or the tea house outside. Was it possible that she was upstairs? Hence, the two of them and the wolf entered the second floor without anyone noticing. There were many tea guests on the second floor, but they still didn't see the woman in red. What's the situation? The two of them and the wolf looked around, their faces full of suspicion. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang saw a staircase leading to the third floor. Immediately, they entered the third floor. There was no guest on the third floor. It was empty. The two of them and the wolf stood by the railing and looked around. Finally, they found a half-closed door in front of them. Hence, they walked over. Through the door, they could see that it was a study room. There was a desk and a bookshelf on the left and a coffee table and a tea set on the right. It looked very neat and clean, and there was a nice smell of incense. The two of them and the wolf looked at each other and walked in quietly. There was no one in the study room. However, Qin Feiyang noticed that the teapot on the coffee table was still bubbling, and there was still half a cup of tea. The teacups were hot, and it was obvious that they had just been poured. This is strange. This should be the place where the owner of the tea house rests. Why don't I see anyone? The white-eyed wolf muttered. Madman let go of Qin Feiyang and appeared from his invisible state. He walked to the front of the bookshelf and looked at it for a while. Then he smiled and said, Astronomy, geography, poetry, ancient history, there are all kinds of books here. It seems like this floor master is really a scholar. Don't talk about this nonsense. I just want to know where this person went. The white-eyed wolf frowned. The madman turned to look at the desk and was slightly stunned. He quickly waved to Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Come here. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. They quickly walked over and saw the 4 treasures of the study placed on the desk. A piece of white paper was placed flat on the desk, and an inkstone was placed on top of it. On top of the inkstone, there was an exquisite writing brush. There were a few lines of words on the paper. Brother Qin, this humble one knows that Xiao Ying's previous performance cannot escape Brother Qin's eyes. You will definitely secretly come back to investigate, so this humble one will leave first. Brother Qin, please do not investigate my origins any further. When the time is right, I will naturally appear and explain everything. Also, presently, the Tea Pavilion can be considered to be a famous place for scholars in Ocean of Cloud City. It would truly be a waste if it were to close down just like that. So, I'll give it to Brother Qin and leave behind the Longjing tea seedlings. I hope that Brother Qin can deal with it properly. I hope Jun and Monyen will see you again. Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf were dumbfounded when they saw the content. Not only did they not find the person, they even got into such trouble. Moreover, this person was quite considerate and left behind the tea seedlings of the Longjing tea seedlings for them. This person is smart. He knew that we were coming, so he immediately fled. The madman smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf also walked out of their invisible state. Qin Feiyang glanced at the desk. There was a cosmos bag beside the inkstone. Then he grabbed the cosmos bag and immersed his divine sense into it. There were over 100 saplings lying quietly inside. Every single one of them was only the height of a palm. They were snow-white and seemed to be condensed from frost. They emitted a shocking divine radiance. Were these the tea seedlings of the Longjing tea seedlings? The White-Eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Little Qin Zi, what should we do now?" The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He hadn't expected that he would be tricked. This housemaster was really smart. He actually knew that the woman in red's performance couldn't escape his eyes. I'm very willing to accept these tea seedlings, but this tea pavilion, Qin Feiyang wasn't interested in it at all. He might as well use this time to cultivate. Then let's just leave, the White-Eyed Wolf said. The madman pondered and said, I think we should keep the tea pavilion, because if this house master wants to find us, he will definitely come to the tea pavilion first. Keep you here to take care of it? The White-Eyed Wolf asked. Me. The madman's face stiffened and he said, disdainfully, I'm a drinker. How can I be interested in taking care of a tea house? Doesn't little Qin Zi like to drink tea? He's here. Do you think I want to talk to you? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at the madman. He did like to drink tea, but drinking tea and taking care of a tea house were two different things. Who said that tea drinkers liked to open tea houses? The madman smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while. Then he suddenly looked at the madman and the White-Eyed Wolf and said with a smile, I thought of someone. Who? The man and the wolf looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang didn't answer. He directly took out the voice-transmitting stone. Buzz! Soon, a shadow appeared. It was Yue Qing. Qin Dage, Brother Mo, Brother Wolf King. Yue Qing's face was full of smiles. Are you still in the Western continent? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Yes. What's the matter? Yue Qing nodded and asked. There is indeed something I need your help with. Since you are in the Western continent, ask Meow Meow to come to the tea pavilion now. I'll wait for her in the study on the 3rd floor. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Tea pavilion. Yue Qing was stunned. After thinking for a moment, she frowned and said, You mean the tea pavilion on the outskirts of the eastern city? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yue Qing looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and nodded. Okay, I'll send a message to Meow Meow. About a moment later, a woman in colorful clothes walked into the tea pavilion coldly. Isn't this the owner of the Tianyue Tower, Meow? Why did she come to the tea pavilion? She is indeed a great beauty with exceptional talent. If I can marry her, I'll wake up laughing in my sleep. With Meow's arrival, the tea pavilion immediately caused a commotion. But Meow turned a deaf ear to all this. She went straight into the tea pavilion, went up to the 3rd floor, found the study, and quickly walked to the door of the study. Seeing Qin Feiyang, Lin Mingya, and the White-Eyed Wolf inside, Her cold expression suddenly melted. She was like a beautiful bud in full bloom, full of charm. Qin Feiyang sensed Yi Miao's aura. He turned to look at Yi Miao, who was standing at the door, and said with a smile, "Why are you standing outside? Come in quickly." Yi Miao nodded and walked in quickly. She chuckled and said, "Qin Feiyang, Brother Amo, Brother Wolf King, you showed off your invincible power on White Crane Island not long ago. Now it's spread in all the major cities. It's just a small matter." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He handed the letter left by the owner of the tea pavilion to Yi Miao. Yi Miao took the letter suspiciously. She lowered her head and read it. She asked in confusion, "What does this mean? Do you know the owner of this place?" "I don't know him." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "If you don't know him, why did he give you the tea pavilion?" Yi Miao suddenly felt a little confused. "Maybe it's because I'm popular." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "But I'm really not interested in these things. So I asked you to come and see if you have time to help me take care of it. There's no problem with the time, but I don't know much about the way of tea." "I'm afraid." Yi Miao was a little hesitant. "Who said that managing a tea house requires one to know about tea? Besides, you can ask someone who knows about tea to help manage it. In short, I'll give you the tea pavilion now. You can manage it however you want. I won't object even if it's included in the assets of Tianyua Tower. As for the Longjing tea, I think there should be a lot of it in the tea pavilion's warehouse. You can use it sparingly. When the tea saplings on my side are cultivated, I'll get someone to send it to you. Of course, you can also look for other tea leaves. After all, with your current status and financial resources, it's not difficult to find a tea comparable to the Longjing tea." With that, Qin Feiyang let the white-eyed wolf open a space-time passage. "Qin Dei Jai," Yi Miao hurriedly called out, but Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf didn't respond. They entered the space-time passage without looking back and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Looking at this scene, Yi Miao couldn't help but find it funny. She didn't expect that there was something that scared these two people and a wolf. In fact, Qin Feiyang and the others weren't scared. They just found it troublesome. Buzz. The divine voice-transmitting stone sounded. Yi Miao took out the divine voice-transmitting stone, and Yueqing's virtual image appeared. Yueqing asked, "Have you been to the tea pavilion?" "I'm at the tea pavilion now." Yi Miao smiled bitterly. "What about Qin Dage and the others?" Yueqing asked. "They ran away." Yi Miao shook her head. "Ran away? What's the situation?" Yueqing was suspicious. Yi Miao briefly explained the situation. Yueqing was stunned. She shook her head and said, "Don't blame them. After all, it's a waste of time for them to take care of the tea house. Since Qin Dage and the others have given the tea pavilion to us, then we'll do our best and take care of it well. That's the only way." Yi Miao smiled helplessly. "Actually, for our Tianyua Tower, this is also an opportunity. I've been thinking now that the Tianyua Tower has stabilized in the western and eastern continents, should we expand our business? Tea, I think it's a good choice," Yueqing said with a smile. Yi Miao was slightly taken aback. She said suspiciously, "Although the Tianyua Tower has stabilized in the western and eastern continents, we haven't settled in the southern and northern continents yet, right? Although we have Qin Feiyang as our backer, and it won't be a problem to enter the southern continent now. If we act too hastily, it might arouse the suspicion of the dragons. After all, the two of us have no power or influence, and we don't have powerful strength. It's difficult for them not to suspect us." Yueqing said in a deep voice. "That's true." Yi Miao nodded and said with a smile, "All right, I'll make the arrangements now. Then I'll have to trouble you first. In a few days, I'll go back and play with you. At the same time, I'll plan the development of the tea pavilion. Since it has fallen into our hands, it naturally can't be just the Cloud Sea City." Yueqing smiled. "Okay." Yi Miao nodded. Outside the city, above a huge mountain, Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf stood in the void, looking at the Cloud Sea City with a smile on their faces. They had finally gotten rid of this trouble. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, looked at the madman, and said, "I'll go to the Black Tortoise world first. Ask Master and the others about the coordinates of the northern continent." "Go to the northern continent later?" The madman was stunned. "Didn't the young man ask us to go take a look?" "Then let's go take a look. Who knows? We might have an unexpected gain." Qin Feiyang smiled and entered the Black Tortoise world to find Pei Dason and Pei Hongyu. Chapter 3592. What is this? When Qin Feiyang handed the Qianquan bag to the Pei siblings, the siblings were suspicious. "This is a tea sapling. You must cultivate it well. Not a single one can die," Qin Feiyang instructed. If it was wine, even if it was a divine brew, he wouldn't care. But tea was different, and these were the Yu Lu Longjing tea that was known as the king of tea. He had drunk the Yu Lu Longjing tea before, and the taste was no worse than the heavenly immortal dew. When the siblings heard this, they immediately said firmly, "Young master, don't worry, we will definitely complete the task." Because they also knew that Qin Feiyang loved tea. For someone who loved tea, tea saplings were treasures. For Qin Feiyang to give them such an important thing, it meant that he trusted them, so they must not mess it up. What are they talking about? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at the tea garden and discovered that Yun Zhongtian was seated with Princess Huifeng and the others, chatting and laughing as they chatted. Although less than an hour had passed outside, a long time had passed in the Black Tortoise world. Princess Huifeng and Pyrotechnic Glow were in high spirits, their bodies glowing with treasure light, as if they had been reborn. Obviously, they had successfully opened the door of potential. "Who are they?" The Pei siblings looked at the group of people suspiciously. "Don't you know?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "I don't know. During this time, we have been busy outside and haven't returned to the Devil's Land." The siblings shook their heads. "They are from the Feng people." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, and with a wave of his hand, the three of them appeared in the tea garden. "Young Master Qin." The Daifuka brothers and Aunt Mei immediately stood up and bowed to Qin Feiyang, and their eyes were full of gratitude, especially Aunt Mei and Aunt Lon. They never thought that the legendary first volume of the alchemy mantra would be in the hands of Qin Feiyang. They also didn't expect that the patriarch would reach such an agreement with Qin Feiyang. That was right. The Daifuka brothers had already told them about Qin Feiyang and Chief Huifeng people. Although it was just a transaction, he was still grateful to Qin Feiyang. Whether it was Daifuku, Xiaofu, Aunt Mei, or Aunt Lon, they all treated Princess Huifeng and Pyrotechnic Glow as their own children. His own child had opened the door to potential and was reborn. How could he not be happy? How could he not be grateful? "Seniors, you're too polite." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled politely. Seeing this, Daifuku and the other three had a better impression of Qin Feiyang. If it were other young people who had Qin Feiyang's achievements, they would definitely be arrogant and look down on others. But the kid in front of him didn't have any arrogance. "Sister, you really don't want to think about this Qin Feiyang? Look how charming he is. Look at that wolf cub, he's just a piece of trash. There's no comparison at all." Pyrotechnic Glow whispered. "Haven't I told you the situation? Why are you still talking nonsense?" Princess Huifeng glared at Pyrotechnic Glow and snorted. "Besides, is the white-eyed wolf a piece of trash? Have you ever seen a piece of trash master the supreme meaning of the 5 strongest laws? If it's a piece of trash, then you're even worse than a piece of trash. Don't you know what your cultivation is? How dare you talk about others?" Pyrotechnic Glow's face froze. In this way, he was really worse than a piece of trash. Pei Dason glanced at them and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Young master, let's go plant tea seedlings first." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. The brother and sister turned and walked to the side, scanning the tea garden. Seeing a small open space on the left, Pei Dason took out a small sapling and said with a smile, "Hongyu, plant one there." "Okay." Pei Hongyu nodded, carefully holding the tea seedling, and walked toward the open space. Seeing this, Pyrotechnic Glow looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise and said with a smile, "Brother-in-law." But before he could say anything, a fierce look glared at him. Pyrotechnic Glow shrunk his neck, smiled at Princess Woofing, and quickly changed his words. "Qin Dage, I didn't expect you to like drinking tea so much. There are so many tea plants, and you want to cultivate new ones. It's too simple. Add some new varieties." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Princess Woofing glanced at the tea seedling in Pei Hongyu's hand. At first, she didn't pay much attention to it, but suddenly, she seemed to have noticed something. She stared at the tea seedling with a hint of surprise in her eyes. The Daifuku brothers noticed Princess Woofing's anomaly and looked at the tea seedling suspiciously. Their pupils suddenly shrank. Xiao Fu said telepathically, "Your Highness, this seems to be the tea seedling of the Longjingyu Lu." "That's right. This is the Longjingyu Lu." "Why does Qin Feiyang have the Longjingyu Lu's tea seedling? Although the Longjingyu Lu isn't a divine tea, I remember that this is a new variety developed by that person. Other than him, no one else in this world can have it." Princess Woofing thought to herself. So these tea seedlings were given to Qin Feiyang by that person? When did they contact each other? The Daifuku brothers were secretly surprised. "I don't know." Princess Woofing shook her head and glanced at Qin Feiyang. Her eyes flickered with an inexplicable light. Qin Feiyang was entangled by Pyrotechnic Glow and didn't notice the abnormalities of Princess Woofing and Daifuku brothers. It was worth mentioning that Pyrotechnic Glow, Aunt May, and Aunt Lon also saw the tea seedlings, but there was nothing unusual. Obviously, only Princess Woofing and the Daifuku brothers knew the origin of the Longjingyu Lu, but the three of them didn't say anything. "Qin Dage, as a younger brother, I really don't want to criticize you. You're such a young and promising person. Why do you like these things that middle-aged and old people like? Isn't drinking good?" Pyrotechnic Glow chattered nonstop. Qin Feiyang felt a headache. Why did he meet such a chatterbox? Moreover, tea should be for middle-aged and old people? What's wrong with young people drinking tea? Is it against the law? This, Qin Feiyang coughed dryly, looked at Princess Woofing and said with a smile, "The door of your potential has been opened. Can you?" "What? You don't like us? You're asking us to leave?" Princess Woofing looked at Qin Feiyang with dissatisfaction. "I'm thinking for your sake. After all, we're destined to be enemies in the future. It's not good to mix too much personal feelings now." Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. "Now is now. The future is the future. Besides, before we left, Father didn't say that we must go back." Princess Woofing said lightly. "Then what do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Princess Woofing glanced around and said lightly, "I think it's quite comfortable here. The environment is good. The most important thing is that it's quiet. I plan to stay here for a while." Qin Feiyang was stunned. Daifuku, Pyrotechnic Glow, and the other two also looked at Princess Woofing in shock. This didn't seem like something the eldest princess would say. Princess Woofing looked at Pyrotechnic Glow and the other two and said with a smile, "Zihui, Aunt May, Aunt Lon, you can go back first." "If you don't go back, why should I go back?" Pyrotechnic Glow quickly waved his hand, looking unhappy. "No, wait." Qin Feiyang quickly interrupted the conversation between the two and looked at Princess Woofing angrily. "What's so good about my place? Let's not talk about anything else. Let's just talk about the time array. The dragons have the time array of 5,000 years in a day. You foam people must have it too. Why do you insist on staying here? What do you mean by insist? I'm the eldest princess of the Fire Phoenix clan. Shouldn't you feel honored to stay here? Let's talk about it later. The Fire Phoenix, Divine Jade, and Fire Phoenix Sword are still with me. Princess Huifeng looked at Qin Feiyang proudly. Don't forget that these two sovereign divine weapons belong to me, temporarily. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. What kind of logic was this? So what if she was the eldest princess? It seemed that only the white-eyed wolf could deal with this woman. Yes, the right to use them does belong to you, but the final control is still in my hands. Princess Huifeng smiled proudly. A row of black lines appeared on Qin Feiyang's forehead. He wanted to slap himself in the face. How could he be so stupid to reason with a woman? Can a woman be reasoned with? Fine. I admit defeat. You want to follow me? Up to you. But if you want to stay in the black tortoise world, don't even think about it. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and forcefully swept up a group of people and appeared above the mountain peak outside. Are you preparing to return to the phoenix nest? The white-eyed wolf saw the group of people appear and looked at Princess Huifeng. He waved his hand and smiled. I won't send you off. Take care. Princess Huifeng's expression froze. This damn wolf cub. Why did he seem more and more annoying? Qin Feiyang turned to Yun Zhongtian at the side and transmitted his voice over to him. Old Yin, you had better go to Sky Cloud Island. You've seen Senior Brother Feng Zi's growth with your own eyes, and this is a great opportunity for you. Bring some wine with you to Big Brother as well. Okay. Yun Zhongtian nodded. Indeed. Feng Ai's growth over the years was too frightening. He didn't even dare to dream about it. So, why wouldn't he go with such a good opportunity? He would be a fool not to go. Yun Zhongtian took out the sword of Thanatos and looked at it pleadingly. You must protect Brother Qin. Clang! The sword of Thanatos trembled in the void as a response. Then, it disappeared into Qin Feiyang's body. White-eyed wolf, bring the wine. Qin Feiyang reached out to the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf jumped up and said angrily, Are you crazy? Can't you go find Jiaoxi yourself? There's ready-made wine. Why would I go there? Qin Feiyang bared his teeth. How did I end up with such a bastard like you? The white-eyed wolf was furious. With a wave of his paw, 2,000 jugs of peerless divine wine appeared. Looking at these jugs, Pyrotechnic Glow's eyes lit up. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian and smiled. Go. Yun Zhongtian nodded. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, he reminded them, Be careful. Feng waved his hand. We don't need you to worry about us. Work hard and don't let down old Qin's good intentions. That's right. We'll wait for your strong return. The white-eyed wolf waved his paw, and a space-time portal appeared. We'll meet again. Yun Zhongtian waved his hand and brought the 2,000 jugs of peerless divine wine into the portal without looking back. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Looks like there's no need to control this old man anymore. He's already on our side. Although I haven't interacted much with him, I can tell that he's a good person. Feng nodded. Chapter 3593. Where are you taking Yun Zhongtian to? Princess Huifeng asked as she looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang and the madman. But as the eldest princess of the Fire Phoenix clan, she knew her limits and did not ask any further. She then turned her head to look at Pyrotechnic Glow and Andime and said, The two of you should go back as well. What's the rush? Pyrotechnic Glow waved his hand and went over to the white-eyed wolf's side and said with a chuckle, Wolf cub, what kind of wine is that? It looks rather tasty. Looking at the scene before her, Princess Hoofing's heart was filled with anger. The white-eyed wolf looked askance at Pyrotechnic Glow, and it was a long while before he spat out, "None of your business." "You." Pyrotechnic Glow glared at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf ignored him completely and turned his head to look at Qin Fang to ask, listening to a certain woman's words, "It seems that you still want to shamelessly follow us." Princess Hoofing's face darkened, and she said angrily, "Hey, hey, hey, I'm still right here. Don't treat me like air." "You're still here?" The white-eyed wolf was taken aback, and he quickly turned to look at Princess Hoofing and smiled sheepishly. My apologies. Big Brother thought you had already left. But why are you still here? The door to your potential has already been opened, right? We don't have anything else that can move your heart now. What are you still hanging around here for?" Princess Hoofing's hands were clenched tightly and her veins were popping. This damned wolf cub is asking for a beating. Qin Fang was laughing happily in his heart. A wicked person would be dealt with by another wicked person. Only the white-eyed wolf would be able to take care of this woman. You wouldn't have taken a fancy to Big Brother's peerless looks, would you? Please don't, please don't. Big Brother has no interest in a woman without hair. The white-eyed wolf said with a shameless chuckle. Scoundrel! Princess Hoofing couldn't take it anymore and slapped the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf raised his paw and easily blocked Princess Hoofing's arm. He frowned and said, "Are you trying to attract my attention?" No. I'm really not interested in you." "I purposely attracted your attention." Princess Hoofing was stunned. Then she became furious and roared, "Who do you think you are? Do I need to deliberately attract your attention?" She was about to explode from anger. How could there be such a shameless wolf cub in this world? The Daifuka brothers and Aunt May were also speechless. He had finally witnessed what it meant to be shameless. It was simply invincible. Pyrotechnic Glow glanced at Princess Hoofing and then at White-Eyed Wolf. He couldn't help but grumble in his heart. His sister was usually a very calm person. Why was she so easily angered now? Abnormal, too abnormal. No, he couldn't let his sister stay alone. It was too dangerous. Pyrotechnic Glow looked at Aunt May and Lon Ruashin and smiled. "Aunt May, Aunt Lon, you two go back first. Tell Father that I'll be playing outside for a while." "What?" Aunt May and Lon Ruashin looked at Pyrotechnic Glow in shock. "It's a happy decision," Pyrotechnic Glow said as he pushed the two of them. "I want you two to go back so that you can help pay attention to Bang Running's movements. I know this woman's character too well. After suffering such a big loss this time, she definitely won't let it go." Qin Fang heard this and looked at Pyrotechnic Glow in surprise. He didn't expect this person to be so smart. "Okay, then be careful." Aunt May and Lon Ruashin smiled helplessly. Pyrotechnic Glow smiled proudly. "Don't worry. With the flaming phoenix blade and the divine phoenix spear protecting me, who dares to do anything to me?" The two of them shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They looked at Qin Fang and Lunatic and apologized. "We're sorry for causing trouble for you two brothers, but I hope you two brothers can help me take care of the two princes. Who needs their care?" Princess Hoofing snorted. Aunt May looked at the first princess and sighed. "Your Highness, you can't say that. After all, you and your brother have just come out. But they are different. They have been wandering outside for a long time and know how sinister people can be. Also, you have good taste." White-Eyed Wolf looked at Aunt May and grinned. Aunt May smiled at White-Eyed Wolf and looked at the first princess and Pyrotechnic Glow. "Anyway, try to listen to them. Don't be willful." "I know." Princess Hoofing waved her hand. "You still think we are long-winded?" Aunt May and Lunatic shook their heads helplessly and turned to Daifuku. Daifuku opened a space-time tunnel, and the two of them walked in without looking back. How troublesome. White-eyed Wolf glanced at the siblings, shook his head, and sighed. Princess, woofing, glared at him fiercely. It will be very lively along the way. Qin Feiyang also shook his head and sighed. He turned to Lunatic and asked, "Do you have the coordinates of the northern continent?" "Yes." Lunatic nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Then let's change our appearances and set off." "Why are we going to the northern continent?" Pyrotechnic Glow looked at the two of them and the wolf suspiciously. White-eyed Wolf raised his eyebrows and looked at Pyrotechnic Glow. "Since you are following us, you should know a rule. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. If you don't speak, don't speak. What are you so arrogant for?" Pyrotechnic Glow glared at White-eyed Wolf. "Not happy? Then scram. I'm not stopping you," White-eyed Wolf said and turned into a big fat black cat. "Wah, you're too funny." Pyrotechnic Glow was stunned and couldn't help but laugh. "Idiot." White-eyed Wolf glanced at him. Just these two words made Pyrotechnic Glow angry again. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic also turned into two ordinary-looking young men. "Is it necessary? With your current strength, who dares to provoke you?" Princess Huofeng didn't understand. "If you want to be surrounded like a monkey, you can come with us like this." White-eyed Wolf waved his paw and opened a space-time passage. He then jumped up and landed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic looked at each other and smiled, then stepped into the space-time passage. "Bastard!" Princess Huofeng stomped her feet and changed her appearance slightly before following them into the passage. Their consideration is actually very thorough. After all, such a big thing happened on White Crane Island. The people of the Sky Cloud realm already know us. If we appear in front of them like this, it will definitely cause a commotion. Daifuku and Lunatic smiled in appreciation. Compared to Qin Feiyang and the others who had rich experience, the two princesses were still lacking. Northern continent. Mountains rose and fell, majestic and magnificent. A city called Fengyuan City was located in the center of the northern continent. It was like a king looking down on all directions. According to Master, Fengyuan City is the largest city in the northern continent. If we want to ask for information, it is the best place to come. In front of the city gate, there was a wide road. People came and went in a hurry. Qin Feiyang, Lunatic, and White-eyed Wolf walked in front. Princess Huofeng and the other four followed behind unhurriedly. As Lunatic walked towards Fengyuan City, he introduced it to Qin Feiyang in a low voice. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "How far is Fengyuan City from Sky Palace?" "The time is too short, so I didn't ask. But as long as we enter Fengyuan City, it is naturally not difficult to ask about Sky Palace." "But why are you interested in Sky Palace?" Lunatic looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "Sky Palace is the ruler of the northern continent. Since we came to the northern continent, we naturally have to ask about Sky Palace." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "So that's how it is." Lunatic nodded in realization. Suddenly he frowned and said, "Say, that guy asked us to come to the northern continent. Is it related to Sky Palace?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "That guy is too much. If he has something to say, just say it. Why must we find the answer ourselves? Does he really think that we are like him and have nothing to do every day?" White-eyed Wolf said angrily. "What's the use of complaining here?" Lunatic rolled his eyes at him. Actually, it was also a headache, because they did not know the young man's intentions. If it was someone else, it would be fine. They could analyze it step by step. But this young man was as unfathomable as the ocean. They could not guess what he was thinking. Soon, the group smoothly entered Fengyuan City. There were guards at the city gate, but they did not check them one by one. After all, compared to the Western continent, Eastern continent and southern continent. The northern continent was the most peaceful place. Inside the city, there was an endless stream of people and carriages. Princess Hoofing and Pyrotechnic Glow were entering a human city for the first time. Everything was new to them. Qin Feiyang and the others did not pay attention to it. They listened and observed their surroundings. Now, what they heard the most was the battle on White Crane Island. I didn't expect it to spread so quickly. Lunatic shook his head. The thing that this world does not lack the most is gossip. White-eyed Wolf pursed his lips. Fortunately, he had the foresight to change his appearance. Otherwise, he would definitely cause a huge uproar the moment he stepped into Fengyuan City. Brother, look. The ornaments inside are so beautiful, and the clothes over there are so beautiful. Come with me to take a look. Princess Hoofing was like a little girl at this moment. She looked at the dazzling array of shops on both sides of the street. Her eyes were shining. The Daifuku brothers looked helpless. They looked at Qin Feiyang, Lunatic, and White-Eyed Wolf and smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, our phoenix nest does not have these things. So no matter what you see, your highnesses will find it fresh. You don't even have these? Your phoenix nest is too boring. Lunatic said, This place is different. The ones living in the phoenix nest are all divine phoenixes. Not to mention strolling around. Even playing around is a waste of time for everyone. Daifuku sighed. So you only know how to cultivate? Lunatic asked. The two nodded. That's so boring. No matter what you do, you have to strike a balance between work and rest. Lunatic had a look of disdain. This can only mean that everyone's lifestyle is different. Daifuku smiled. Lunatic heard this and turned to look at Princess Hoofing and Lunatic, who ran into the shop. He could not help but have a trace of sympathy on his face. Then he looked at White-Eyed Wolf and laughed. Brother Wolf, actually this woman is not bad. Do you want to consider her? Of course. These words were said through voice transmission. After all, the Daifuku brothers were at the side. White-Eyed Wolf smiled in disdain and said indifferently, If you like her, then go. Don't blindly matchmake her. If I wasn't already taken, would you have a chance? Lunatic sneered. It's okay. I believe that little fairy won't object to you finding a concubine. White-Eyed Wolf bared his teeth. Lunatic's face turned black. I am talking to you about serious matters, and you are talking nonsense with me. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.